you don't realize they're so subtle. Like, but this is high level Freemasonry. Like, words are spells. This is spell casting. This is what they're doing. This is a ritual. This is manipulating the masses into, being okay and normalizing the sexual degeneracy. And like he even said, both of the women have had sexual partners while in their radical monogamous construct. Like, how is this monogamous? Like, it's not even just you three. Like, you're all screwing other people the whole time.
Hi, loves. Welcome to episode 9 of the Inner Alchemy podcast with your host, Sandal Roy. Today, we are responding to the Aubrey Marcus controversy with him opening up his relationship. You may have seen the short, quick video that I did as an initial response. That is here on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening or watching this on Spotify, then if you want to have a look at that, then go check out my YouTube channel. Okay, it's youtube.com/@Ishtar the Moon, or you can search Sandal Roy, my name. Some of you may have noticed that I am no longer findable on Facebook or Instagram. Unfortunately, and I will film a quick short, filling you in what's happened. But Meta have deactivated my account. Okay, on Friday they suspended my account for no reason. Like, I was using it in the morning. I was talking to Dom. We were on video call. We used Messenger for video call, and then I was texting him in the morning, and everything was fine. I didn't post anything. I don't think there was anything that I'd posted in the previous days that was particularly controversial, like previous things that have flagged my account. But for some reason, my account just went down and I was logged out, couldn't log back in. And then they said that they've suspended my account and that they're investigating to see if I violated community standards on account integrity, which probably has something to do with the fact that I use a different name on Facebook. I'm Ishtar Moon on Facebook. My real name is Sandal Roy. I have a page attached to my account, which was for my modeling work, and it was Sandal Roy. Everybody knows that my name is Sandal Roy. I share my podcast. Not everybody, but, if you know me and you're familiar with my work, you know my name's not really Ishtar Moon, okay? So, I get that that's against Facebook rules. Lots. If you're using a different name on Facebook, just take this as a cautionary tale. Obviously, if you're not speaking up against, the various psyops that are waged against humanity, and speaking up against the blue and white and the multiple genocides and censorship and all the different psyops, then maybe you'll be safe. Okay, but if you're actually speaking your truth and sharing medicine with the world that makes you a threat to the system, stuff like this can happen. Okay, so just be mindful. I would just, if you're using a different name on Facebook, or even if you're not using a different name on Facebook, they can still take you down if they don't like what you're saying. So make sure you have backup accounts. Make sure those backup accounts aren't connected to the same email address. Sometimes they can still identify what's connected and what's not, because I tried to set up a second account not immediately, but the next day. This happened yesterday, and I tried to set up a second account. Was it last night or maybe this morning? Using my real name, Sandal Roy. I'm like, okay, if you want me to use my real name, I'll just use my real name. I used a different email address, and it was still immediately flagged as being connected, probably because my Facebook page account had the same name, so they somehow knew that I'm the same person. And so they flagged that as well, and they said, no, you're not allowed to be on Facebook, which is horrendous, because obviously if you signed up for the Reclaim Your Voice webinar, that was going to be hosted in a Facebook group, as I've, all my previous webinars were hosted in Facebook groups. The Caminal Juyu Guatemala Gridwork webinar, which was amazing, was hosted in a Facebook group. Unfortunately, if I can't get back into my account and I can't download my information, that webinar is now gone, which is so devastating, because that was such a fire webinar. We were literally I went and looked at a bunch of different comparative mythology, from everything from like Khmer and Nagaland, the Naga serpents, to the Fisher Kings, to Mesoamerican creation stories, and how they all had these different narratives around these reptilian serpent-like beings that fuse their DNA with human DNA, and you've got all these royal bloodlines that basically have reptilian DNA, and it's written in the creation story, Zulu creation story as well. That's what David Icke represents. It was a really fire webinar. And obviously I was on the Oaxaca grid and the Guatemala grid physically when I did that webinar, and we channeled wisdom from the wisdom keepers of the land, the indigenous custodians of the land that are in spirit on that grid, and they gave us advice on how we can collectively organize, you know, against these systems that are waging genocide against our people. So yeah, I'm really upset about it. I haven't cried about it. That's something I find a little bit difficult to do. Like, Dom's always trying to get me to cry and feel my emotions. It's part of like his spiritual practice with, like, you know, just embodying the you know, the feminine Sophia and getting closer. That's how you get closer to God. It's literally the ascension process. And since being with him, I've realized like how emotionally blocked I am. And how I tend to bypass a lot of things and put a spiritual, like, positive reframing on things. And I think a lot of that does come from like new age spirituality. So I've kind of been looking at that. And that's actually something that we're seeing a lot in this Aubrey Marcus situation, okay, that we're seeing the women particularly doing this, kind of spiritually bypassing their pain instead of actually just feeling it, and, you know, developing boundaries and standards for themselves by actually acknowledging what hurts them and what they're not willing to tolerate, that they shouldn't be tolerating, but they're being so spiritually gaslit that they just can't even trust the wisdom of their own bodies, okay? So they're not embodied as the divine feminine, okay? That's not to shame them or anything like that, but it's just, I don't think that these are people that we should be looking to as leaders for this reason, okay? Yeah, it's just like, I shared that story on my Instagram that I mean, I don't think I'll be able to find it, but it was like, somebody had done like a gallery responding to the Aubrey Marcus situation with just a lot of hilarious sarcasm. And one of the posts that she shared was Britney Spears, like with, you know, like so much smudged mascara all over her face, looking like a mess. Obviously, those of you who've researched, you know, just the elite cults, the satanic cults, will know why Britney is in such a mess at the moment. Look up Donald Marshall. She's just there going, are you breathing? Are you eating well? What time do you go to bed? How are you doing daily? I'm here to help you. And then a tagline saying this is basically like the spiritual community and spiritual leaders in the spiritual community. And look, I get it. Like, you can be a wounded healer. I'm not perfect. I've got shit that I need to work on. Dom has shit that he needs to work on. My mentor, Emily, obviously, you know, the stuff that she's been going through with her husband, soon to be ex-husband, you know, they're now in separation, or they obviously have shit that they need to work on. So I'm not saying that you have to be perfect and perfectly enlightened to help others, but it's just, if you're trying to present what you're doing as this like new highly evolved way of relating, and it's like that, I'm sorry, that's a mess, okay? So let's talk about it, okay? So responding in particular to the Mark Gaffney podcast, and I am going to talk about him, Aubrey Marcus shared that, you know, in the beginning when he first approached Vylana, he was still with Whitney, his ex, who he was in an open relationship with. And when he told Vylana, this is the dynamic, you know, I'm with this girl, and, you know, but I'm really into you. Do you want to join? Do you want to share me? She was just like, no way. I'm sorry, I'm main character energy. I'm not interested. And then I think they were friends for a while. She got into another relationship. Sounds like she was cheated on in that relationship. And so then they ended up getting into a configuration, but she was just like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not doing the configuration that you're in with Whitney. That's not it. And so I think he broke up with Whitney to be with Vylana, and then they got married, or he proposed to her. it's interesting that she actually says, she was just like, we had our first date before we even had sex. This is that statement to me just sums up just the fall of Western culture. Like, how inverted have our values become, where that's a surprising thing to pass note on, that wow, we had our first date before we even had sex, like we didn't even hook up first. And that's obviously Burning Man culture. It's just very hedonistic, isn't it? It's very hedonistic, it's very degenerate. Look, I'm not saying that don't ever go to Burning Man, but it's just kind of for me, I first heard about Burning Man many years ago. I was 20, okay? I just had my 40th birthday. So it was 20 years ago. It sounded amazing with the 10 principles. I was just like, oh my God, I really want to go. I would love to go. In recent years, it started to become, and obviously because I've worked as a model for most of this time, I started to notice that tech bros were basically inviting some of my model friends, flying them in to be part of the camp. And I was also invited to go at one point. I declined that invitation. But for me, when you've got like rich dudes flying in models for a festival, that's not like a spiritual festival. That's now a Mayfair club on the playa. So I can't really take it seriously. Like, if your marketing ploy includes your trips to Burning Man, like, that's, for me, that's just spiritual capitalism. That's not like, you're not here for the revolution, okay? So that's just, you know, me being judgmental, but we all judge, okay? For me, you can call it judgmental, and probably if you have issues with people being judgmental, this podcast is going to trigger you. In fact, my work in general is going to trigger you, okay? Because I like to have discernment. I'm interested in objectivity and the objective differences between wrong and right, and being able to call that, and accessing higher and higher timelines through being discerning, and but being like, no, this is not of God, this is not sacred, this is not what God wants, I'm going to go this way. So yeah, and I'm not just, you know, I'm not here saying what Marcus, Aubrey and Vylana and Alana and all the other people in their configuration should be doing with their lives, okay? What they do with their lives is completely up to them. But I am going to call out some of the bullshit that they're chatting, and the lies and the distortions, and the fact that they have a massive platform. And I believe that when you have a big platform, that comes with a spiritual moral responsibility, okay? I was gifted a reasonably large platform because of my modeling work. That's how I built my platform, and then I started pivoting into speaking truth and activism, and sharing my spiritual journey, and then I eventually started doing spiritual healing work, because I've just always believed that my platform that I started attracting a lot of attention from my modeling work. I was just say, this can't just be about me just showing my beauty, showing my body, and selling people stuff, like selling bikinis and skincare and stuff like that. That doesn't fulfill me, and that's not, like, my life has got to have more meaning than that. Obviously, I was traveling the world, I was traveling to Asia, I saw a lot of inequality that really, really broke me, and it really awoke me. So if you're new here, that's basically a summary of my spiritual journey. You can go watch previous videos if you want to kind of follow it in real time, because I've been here on YouTube for about 10 years. So I did, you'll track some of that. So yeah, basically they started dating, and you know, she was like, oh, obviously I'm main character. So he was like, okay, yeah, I'm really intentional about this. I want you to be my wife. I want you to be my main character. And said from the beginning that he basically said from the beginning that they were going to be monogamous, but with some extra play. Guys, please, this is the shit that I can't stand, okay? And the thing that bothers me about this as well is the fact that I don't feel like they were transparent with their audience about this. They dropped clues, okay, because I've gone back and looked at previous podcasts, like the one with Layla Martin, which I'll reference as well, where they dropped some clues. But I think in general, a lot of people were looking to them being like, oh, he was in an open relationship and now he's married and they're monogamous, okay? They're calling it monogamous and it's not monogamy, okay? Having threesomes is not monogamy. Having a relationship where both of you are allowed to fuck other people is not monogamy, okay? This should be plainly obvious, but currently we're living in upside down land where black is white, white is black, good is bad, colonizers are victims. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so much bullshit and so much inversion. Things that shouldn't need to be said keep needing to be said because humanity is being so badly gaslit. And I get so frustrated because I'm just like, how are people stupid enough to fall for this? And luckily I'm seeing that a lot of people are not stupid enough to fall for this and people are calling it out. But after going back and looking at some of the previous podcasts, they did give clues that it wasn't real monogamy. And I'm going to reference some of those. Yeah, and, you know, just selling people divine union courses off the back of their relationship when it's not monogamy, that is so deceptive, okay? And so it's fraudulent. It's actually fraudulent, okay? Because divine union is a monogamous template, okay? If you're in a polyamorous configuration, cool, do what works for you, okay? I don't judge that, okay? I like I've said before, I dip my toes into that lifestyle, and like Aubrey, Marcus and Whitney actually shared, they had like severe jealousy issues, which I've also got in my notes that I'm going to speak to. They had severe jealousy issues, so they felt like, you know, opening up their relationship would help them deal with their jealousy and their possessiveness. And I went through that as well, okay, because I had a lot of issues with possessiveness and being jealous of other people, like coming into my relationship, or my partner like giving attention to other people, or even like retroactive jealousy, okay? And so we're gaslit as a society to think that those things aren't normal, that they're not healthy, that we're not supposed to feel like that. And that's actually not true, okay? When you're in divine union, your container is supposed to be completely sealed, okay? And I'll also explain why divine union is monogamous, okay? Well, your container is supposed to be completely sealed and completely monogamous, okay? You're not supposed to be sexually projecting onto other people for this whole thing that like, oh, it's normal to find other people attractive, okay? He said that, you know, in the podcast that he did with Whitney, where they were still together, he was talking about how he got so jealous that she was like saying that she thought Channing Tatum, like topless gyrating Channing Tatum, was hot, and he got so insanely jealous of that and was like had to go to the gym and was like boxing and like, you know, trying to take out his anger and stuff. And so people do this, okay? They'll normalize this kind of stuff. Oh, it's normal to be attracted to other people. It's actually not, okay? If you're in divine union, you will only desire your soulmate, okay? Your genetic equal, because they have the templating of what you're looking for in a partner, okay? Those of you guys who know both me and Dom can recognize how similar we are. We literally have the same templating. We have the same mission, okay? Some of our gifts are slightly different, okay? He's got slightly different areas of expertise, but that's because those are unintegrated parts of you that at some point you're going to start to develop, okay? For example, like I've modeled for 20 years. He's never worked as a model, but he is like a championship bodybuilder, okay? He's won medals and awards for being a bodybuilder, okay? He would be interested in modeling as well, sports modeling. He's a DJ. I've never been a DJ, but you know, I would be interested in developing that gift. I mean, when I was like modeling in India and we would go to like after parties, you know, I was big into the party scene in India. Like the party scene in Mumbai was very, very fun, actually. Lots of hedonism as well, which is obviously has a real dark side. But I remember when we would go to all the after parties, I would always take my iPod. I'm dating myself now, how long ago this was. I'd take my iPod, connect it to the Bluetooth, and I would be DJing at these after parties. So, you know, your soulmate is basically you in another body, okay? And if you're finding other people attractive, they are emotional injuries that are unhealed within you, okay? Usually that is either you're with the wrong person, and so the mirror is that there's fundamental incompatibilities and areas where where you're not being met. Like you have emotional needs that need to be met by the other person. Like for me, I love having like long, deep conversations that are about spirituality, about ascension, about the universe, about healing. Okay, that's a need, okay, for me in a relationship. And when I was in relationship with people who couldn't meet me there, I felt deeply unfulfilled, okay, and deeply like there was something missing in my life, okay, and I was just like, this can't be it, okay, this can't be my final landing spot. Then there's got to be something better out there. So you might have things like that, okay? You might have areas where you really need to be met. So, you know, when Aubrey Marcus is talking about how he wanted to experience the many faces of the goddess, that's because he hasn't met his person. Like, actually, in the beginning, I was just like, are him and Vylana actual soulmate twin flames who are just so unhealed that they're playing out these unhealthy dynamic, and eventually they will heal and unify and get rid of this toxic dynamic. But after kind of exploring, there's some signs that I think that maybe they're not true soulmates, because unless there's some parts of her that are so unintegrated that he isn't feeling completely met, that he still feels the need to have all these other mirrors, okay? Because your templating will be such that you'll have all these traits. And me and Dom have talked about this extensively, okay? With all our other partners that we were with previously, you are looking for your soulmate in all of them, okay? So every single person that we were with had something that was similar to each other, okay? Every single person that I was with had something about them that's similar to Dom. Like maybe they were a DJ, maybe they were musical, maybe they were super artistic, maybe they were an activist, you know, maybe they were really into the occult, maybe they were really spiritual, maybe they were a provider, you know, all the things that Dom is in one person, these people had a few traits of. So I'm just like, oh my God, this is what I'm looking for, but these things are missing. And that's what will lead someone into thinking, okay, well, maybe I open this up and maybe I get those needs that aren't being met by this person met by someone else, okay? So I don't think he's met his person yet. I don't think Vylana is his person, because otherwise why would he need other faces of the goddess? So yeah, sexually projecting onto other people is there's a wound there. So either it's the wrong person, or there's just some kind of emotional injuries that are preventing the people from fully showing up in the relationship and being truly devotional to each other. Like maybe they have some avoidant traits and they're not able to be vulnerable fully, and so, you know, they're like, okay, well, maybe I just get my needs met by this other person. Maybe this other person, you know, maybe I'll sexually project onto this other person because maybe, you know, this other person might be, I think when people are sexually projecting onto like celebrities and things like that, I think usually that's a defense mechanism, because they think that the other person is doing it, or it can just be a sexual leak or a sexual distortion caused by previous trauma, porn programming, stuff like that. Okay, when you are truly being met by your soulmate and you've healed enough of your emotional injuries to truly actually submit to each other and be truly devotional to each other and vulnerable, you won't desire anybody else. Okay, like all that stuff is normal to find other people attractive. It's normal to notice if other people are good looking. Yes, like I notice if my brother looks nice. Like I know, like my brother's a good looking guy, okay? I notice if my mum looks particularly radiant, you know, she puts on a nice dress and like puts on some makeup. I notice that she looks beautiful. That doesn't mean that I'm attracted to those people, okay? You can notice if somebody looks nice, looks healthy, looks radiant, has good bone structure, but that doesn't mean that you necessarily are attracted to them or like sexually activated by them or like are imagining being intimate with them, okay? If that is happening, you're either not with your person or you've got some sexual leaks and sexual distortions that need to be healed. So the soulmate union is about sealing all leaks and merging into one, okay? because of your light body architecture. Okay, I've spoken about this in previous videos. I spoke about it in the polyamory. Can polyamory and ethical non-monogamy be sacred? No, because sacred is anything that brings you closer to God. So, and I'll talk about this more I've got it in my notes and I'll expand on it. But the ascension pathway, the Hieros Gamos process of inner alchemy, is about merging the inner polarities. You've got your masculine channel on the right side and your feminine channel on the left side, okay? Ida, Pingala. And it's about merging those two into one. And you get Kundalini awakening, pineal activation, crown opening, and, you know, you can experience, you know, insane merging with the Godhead, okay? Deep full body orgasms or energy orgasms or Kundalini activations, okay? And when you are in soul union, these happen regularly not even just during sex, okay? With Dom, it's happened to me sometimes that even just standing in his auric field, I've had energy orgasms just from standing next to him, okay? Not like, you know, in the queue, you know, buying coffee, like when we're at home, you know, connecting, you know, maybe dancing around the flat, making time for each other to emotionally and physically connect. I've had it happen several times that I've had an energy orgasm. And look, I'm not saying that can't happen with other, I know that in the neo-tantric communities that people can do that to each other. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're soulmates. But it can happen. Like with, I haven't practiced any of that stuff. I stay away from those communities because there's so many distortions and inversions. And I think a lot of them are quite satanic. I haven't studied any of that stuff. I don't know how to activate that stuff. Dom, obviously I've studied White Tantra with Himalayan Kriya Yoga, which we teach in Reclaim Your Crown, how to sublimate the sexual energy. But I've never studied like how to induce an energy orgasm. So the fact that was just happening, and he's never studied that either. The fact that was just happening just by standing next to him, I think is telling. So as if polyamorous configuration were sacred and could be part of the Hieros Gamos process, Hieros Gamos meaning sacred marriage or inner alchemy or divine union or sacred marriage or sacred union, that's what all those terms mean. You wouldn't just have one feminine channel and one masculine channel. It's literally there in your light body architecture. One man, one woman merging under covenant with God. And then from what merges from that union is the divine child. Okay, that's the Trinity. You would have maybe two feminines and a masculine channel. Or you'd have two masculines and a feminine channel. Or you'd have two of each. You don't have that. You have one of each. So that's what it's literally telling you in the divine architecture that how God created us, that we are designed to be monogamous, and that monogamous sacred union is what accesses it is the ascension pathway. So that's what sacred union is. It's like super simple, okay, guys? God is not the architect of confusion. This configuration is not sacred. It's abusive. The whole threesomes thing, that's not sacred union, okay? And doing courses on divine union when you're having that kind of configuration and you're not even being honest about it, I think is not cool. Like, they should have just done a course on how to have a conscious open relationship. Like, I would have respected that more. I feel like a lot of people would have respected that more if they had just done that and just been honest. So Dr. Gaffrey is their mentor. Dr. Gaffrey is a Zionist pedophile. He's an Israeli-American Rebbe who has multiple accusations of sexual assault, many involving minors. I don't know if they're convictions. I didn't research that. I need to actually look that up. But, you know, I welcome y'all to look into the accusations against him. That's a very problematic person. Multiple people have raised that point. And they're basically teaching Kabbalah, Okay, I spoke about Kabbalah in my video on International School of Temple Arts, okay, because International School of Temple Arts, also an Israeli-American organization where they teach neo-tantra. Multiple participants have been raped at this, in these containers. And they also teach Kabbalah, okay? And Kabbalah teaches radical responsibility, in that you're completely responsible for your own experience. You create your own reality. If something bad happens to you, you need to look at what you did to attract it, all that kind of shit, okay? It's a pretty satanic ideology. I'm just going to say that, okay? They literally teach that God is Satan. God created Satan, and Satan is the shadow side of God. They teach like the 10 base tree of life. The architecture of the divine is a 12-based architecture, okay? There's 12 dimensions that will take you to the Godhead, and the true organic tree of life, through which, you download your mission in your light body, and that will start manifesting your own personal Eden on this planet, is a 12-base architecture, okay? I know that's a little complex if you don't understand those concepts. For those of you people who've worked with me one-on-one will understand it, okay? Because one of the things that I do in the field is I basically will pull out the Klepoth, the 10-sphere tree of life. It's not the tree of life, right? And usually the 10-sphere will have like loads of miasma, which is basically like black goo. It's ancestral trauma. And so we'll pull that out. We'll clear and flush the whole light body of all this ancestral miasma and all these reversals. And then we'll activate the 12 tree of life, and their own personal Eden. So, look into, if you want to study that a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to tell you to proceed with extreme caution, but if any of you are familiar with the teachings of Neville Goddard, a lot of that is based on Kabbalic wisdom, okay? And people will be like, oh, but Neville Goddard, that's all great stuff. It's just like, it sounds good in the beginning, like, oh, yes, you can manifest whatever you want, whatever you believe, whatever you assume. It's all law of assumption stuff. When you really start getting into it, and I dove into it for like maybe 2 years studying this stuff, it can kind of leave you with a kind of psychosis almost, where you don't know what's real anymore, because they teach that there is no free will, that you are God, that you can create your own reality based on your own beliefs and assumptions, that there's no objective truth. Truth is subjective. And if you see, obviously, what's happening in the Holy Land right now with the blue and white, that they will just make stuff up. They just keep on lying and projecting and making things up and accusing their victims of the same stuff that they're doing, because they're literally trying to create an alternative reality based on their own subjective viewpoint, okay? And unfortunately, that's just not true, okay? There are objective truths, okay? 2 + 2 = 4, okay? You can affirm that 2 + 2 = 5 until the cows come home. It's not going to equal 5. So there are certain objective truths, and you don't get to completely carve out your own reality based on your assumptions if you just change your assumptions, okay? There are certain assumptions that just because you believe them to be true will not manifest, and vice versa. And so bearing that in mind, if you look at what they're saying, Aubrey Marcus and his 2 women that he's in this triad constellation with, you'll see a lot of that, the way that they reframe everything to try and feel okay about it. And I think it's quite gross, the way he's trying to paint it as like, oh, it's equal opportunities because they're also allowed to have other partners. He's literally just pimping out his wife to other brothers of his, just so that he can feel, not so guilty about doing this, and so she can also feel like okay about the fact that he's, having this other young woman in their marital bed. She's like, oh, well, I guess I get to do it too. It's just gross, guys. It's really gross. I don't know how anyone is okay with this. He went to Egypt and he received this message from Spirit in the Isis temple. Okay, and he was like, this is Isis. Okay, firstly, there are some serious distortions that happened in the mystery school temples, particularly in and around Egypt. Okay, they were originally the temples of Ishtar. Ishtar was a goddess she was a goddess of Hieros Gamos, okay, divine union. And then I channeled a lot in the field around how those mystery school teachings became distorted and those temples eventually became brothels. And they didn't start that way, okay? I've talked about this extensively in previous videos. Look up my video, The Dalai Lama, Suck My Tongue and the Distortion of the Dakinis, where I talk about some of the stuff that I channeled with one particular client, okay? And I was shown quite a few timelines in which how some of that distortion happened. I'm not going to get into it here, but it was originally, the temples were originally like a king and queen, high priest and high priestess, okay, and in sacred union. And then they had various initiates that were lower down the hierarchy. And the hierarchy was not like, we're the king and queen, you have to worship us, we're the bosses. It was they were in service and in divine service to their initiates. They were just more highly initiated, okay? It wasn't about them being better or more powerful. They just knew more and were teaching it to the others. And certain things happened in those temples where people went against the divine order and the divine architecture and started doing messed up things like partner swapping or some of the women would try and get a little bit competitive with the high priestess and start initiating men without the proper levels of initiation. Okay, you're supposed to initiate men into purity and sacred reverence, okay, for the goddess and for the divine feminine principle of care, okay. They had to be in divine service. They had to be a very high moral integrity and character, okay. And some of these women started giving their power, their sacred feminine creational womb power to uninitiated men, okay. And that created a lot of distortions. Their codes were stolen, and it created the big mess that we're now seeing today in masculine feminine relating. So the message that he got from Spirit, don't just be talking to any spirits, guys, okay? Spirits can be demons, they can be demonic. That was probably a demon that was talking to him, or it was just his own mind. It's you need to be sealing up, okay? And like when I do my client sessions, I make sure that we connect to the highest light of Prime Creator God Source. We seal up really carefully. We don't consent to communicate with any spirits that don't serve the living Christ and the law of one. So we can't be deceived and distorted in that way, okay? So so he's just listening to demons that are plugging into his wounds as well, like his wound of like needing to be this big guy, this really important high status man. He's even said it in podcasts, like, I needed to be big, my parents were big, I need to be a big deal. And a lot of that stuff around masculine competition comes from these timelines, okay, where men basically had to siphon the feminine creational power of the womb from multiple women in order to achieve that high status, okay? Because in divine union, you don't have that level of masculine competition, okay? That doesn't mean that there aren't hierarchical structures and that there aren't people who are leading others and initiating others, and there is a hierarchy to that, but the hierarchy is in service, okay? It's in service to the people that are coming through the various levels of initiation, okay? You have to hold a very high moral integrity to be able to be in that position of leadership, okay? It's not about power over and look at how many women I can get and how many women want me. They talk about how they met Alana. Like, Spirit told him to go on Raya, which is basically a celebrity dating app. A bunch of models I know are on there, to meet like high status men. I don't think you're gonna find your soulmate on Raya, guys. I don't know, I could be wrong, but it's just, yeah, the energy of that just feels very I don't know, just very Luciferian. And so they met her and they started hanging out with her, and then very quickly went into a medicine ceremony, which apparently is 5-MAO. I don't know exactly what that is, but there's so much talk in all of their podcasts about medicine ceremony, sat with a medicine ceremony. These people sound like addicts, okay? And he describes himself as a psychonaut. Okay, look, I'm not against psychedelics, I'm not against plant medicine, I'm not against ayahuasca, bufo. You know, like me and Dom, when we went camping, you know, we sat with some, like, just a microdose of like psilocybin. I'm always super careful. You know, you guys know that like my videos on psilocybin, on cannabis, and on my experiences with ayahuasca in the Amazon are some of my most viewed videos on my channel. But that was in 2017, and I haven't felt guided to sit with medicine again, okay? You know, I've done a little bit of psilocybin since then, but I'm firstly only a microdose. Secondly, I am super intentional even when it's a microdose to shield properly, okay? Because if I don't, entities can get in, okay? If you're constantly needing to sit with medicine and sit with spirit and consume these psychedelics, to me, that I just get like very hedonistic, addict, like drug addict vibes from this whole crew. Yeah, it's just very pleasure seeking. You know, you see that a lot with the kind of Austin crew of coaches who are all into like pleasure, orgasmic manifestation, and all of that stuff, and they kind of all have orgies together. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a red flag for me. What was I gonna say? Yeah, so they went into a medicine ceremony very quickly upon meeting her, which is, I just think is very predatory, okay? She's very young, she's very vulnerable. She's like, oh, these couple are spiritual, let's do spiritual medicine together. That they sound nice and like they're super connected to God. And, you know, 28, I think, is very young to, you know, she obviously hasn't developed that level of discernment to know that there are predators in spiritual communities, okay? It took me a little while to figure that out. And it sounds like she hasn't figured that out yet. And people who are narcissistic or self-serving in spiritual communities and New Age communities, okay? New Age spirituality is satanic. I've talked about that multiple times on my channel and explained why. Go look at some of my previous videos where I explain that extensively. So yeah, Mark Gaffrey, towards the end of the podcast, he quotes Neo and Trinity, and he compares Marcus and Vylana to Neo and Trinity. Neo and Trinity, okay, I know this is Hollywood, but they are dealing with some very, what's the word? Some symbolism that's basically based on organic creation codes, because, and this is a thing that you need to understand about New Age spirituality, they can't actually invent anything themselves, okay? I learned this from my mentor Emily Harris. The New Age will always take organic creation codes and they will just dilute them or invert them, and that's why they feel really good, because there's something about them that is true, but it's incomplete or it's inverted, and that's why it will wreak havoc on your life. So not saying that there can't be an initiation into some of the teachings, but it's important to always look between the surface and seek the truth always, okay? Because New Age spirituality will take basically indigenous wisdom from various traditions and water it down basically, and gatekeep it as well. They won't give you they won't give you access to the true original custodians of those lineages. And this is even happening with yogic and tantric lineages, in which there is a guru who actually does come from an Indian lineage, okay? We're seeing massive issues with spiritual narcissism and sexual predation with some of these Indian gurus, okay? So I'm not just making this an East versus West thing, or like these are Westerners culturally appropriating our lineages. It's also happening from our own lineages. People are even seeing this also with the Mesoamerican Indigenous American communities, that some of them have indigenous shamans that are not in high moral integrity, and who are selling out their culture in return for access to women, finances, things like that, okay? So just be mindful that just because somebody comes from a certain lineage doesn't mean that they hold high moral integrity, okay? So Neo and Trinity are a twin flame couple, okay, in the Matrix, okay? It literally, if you watch that film, there's a lot, yes, there's some Hollywood bullshit, but there are a lot of organic creation codes. So the whole Matrix trilogy, or whatever it's called, I think there's more than 3 films, but it was actually based on a book. I can't remember the name of the book, but it was a book that was written, they say it was based on Ghost in the Shell, but Ghost in the Shell was also appropriated from this particular author. It was a black woman named Sophia. So the whole like red pill community and, you know, their hatred of women, particularly black women, is just so ridiculous, because the whole concept came from a black woman called Sophia, called the goddess of wisdom, the divine feminine. So Neo is an anagram for the one, okay? He represents the Christ masculine. Trinity, the triple goddess, the triple solar goddess, the solar Sophia, okay? They are a divine union couple, okay? They are literally like soulmates, twin flames, and when they get together, they start activating their multidimensional gifts and doing their divine mission in service to the collective, okay? And comparing Aubrey and Vylana to them, can you imagine Trinity and Neo being like, oh yeah, let's have, what's his name? Oh, let me lend Trinity out to, who's the main guy? The main guy who gives him the pills, let me just lend her out to him so that I can also have sex with this other chick, or maybe we can all have I mean, it's Hollywood, so maybe that wouldn't be outside of the realm of possibility, that Hollywood could take something so sacred and just sully it like that. But I mean, I think a lot of people would call bullshit on it if they saw that. So yeah, in the podcast, Vylana keeps on talking about finding a new edge. I keep on going, here's my edge, and then I'm stretching, expanding, evolving past my edge. I'm like, girl, that's a very fluffy way of saying I'm having my boundaries repeatedly violated, and repeatedly heartbroken, my trust repeatedly violated, and literally dissolving my edges. You're literally having your boundary, you're she's getting so loosed, okay? She's getting so harvested. Emily spoke about this. So Emily on Facebook is Avalon Pendragon. Emily, please, please protect yourself from Meta, or whatever they did to me, they could do to you because you're using a different name. She mentioned in her video on this that Vylana is clearly getting loosed like crazy, because they will do that when the new relationship, when the masculine will get into a new relationship with another woman, they will literally loose on the original woman and feed on her creational energy. It's just disgusting. It's disgusting what they're doing to her. It's grooming, manipulation, and abuse, and she is allowing it. She is allowing it because unfortunately she does have severe betrayal trauma, and she doesn't seem to realize that monogamy is available to her. Not with him, obviously she's corded and trauma bonded to him, so that's why she's accepting this and choosing this, because he's basically made it clear that if she doesn't want this dynamic, she can walk away and she'd be very rich, but she would lose him, okay? And she's obviously still in love with him, so, you know, she's made a compromise, and he hasn't compromised in any way, and is just being a spiritual narcissist, okay? In the beginning I was like, you know, he seems like a nice guy, I'm not trying to hate on him, but I don't like what he's putting out. But after watching a bunch of podcasts and listening to them, but this podcast coupled with Whitney, and then the one that they did with Layla Martin, I'm like, no, this is a spiritually abusive dynamic. It's some kind of reptilian alien love bite, okay? And I don't think that they're divine union either. Okay, so in the podcast with Whitney, they were both talking about how they had severe jealousy issues and possessiveness issues. And Whitney was talking about how she was projecting her own disloyal behavior in previous relationships onto her partners, looking for hairs in the bed and things like that, because she was the one that was texting and being disloyal and going behind her partner's back and doing all this stuff. So she thought that they were too, okay? This is obviously sexual misery templating. They've normalized cheating. They've normalized disloyal behavior. That's a lot of the time people will behave in disloyal ways because they think that the other person is doing it. So they're like, oh, they're probably doing it as well, so I'm just going to do that too to protect myself in case I get hurt. But it doesn't give you safety. It doesn't make you feel more safer and more secure. You just start to become more and more paranoid that the other person's doing it too. And, you know, Aubrey was talking about how he got so jealous, and like, even though they were in this polyamorous dynamic, this open relationship, it wasn't fun for him, like, to have Whitney go out and be with other people. He still was so angry about it, and they thought that they constantly had to evolve past these jealousy issues and these possessiveness issues. The jealousy is there for a reason, guys, okay? It's telling you what is not okay. Even retroactive jealousy, okay? Because I used to have major issues with retroactive jealousy as well. And the way I healed it was also by just becoming a sexual degenerate as well. And being like, well, you know, if I have to deal with somebody's horrible, disgusting sexual past, then they're going to have to deal with mine, so I'm just going to do it too. And I was really angry with God. I was angry with the masculine. I was angry with what was happening to the feminine. I was angry with what was happening to divine union. I was angry with the fact that men were just always looking at porn and going to strip clubs and just being sexual degenerates. So it was basically like a, if you can't beat them, join them kind of thing. And me and Dom have cried so much about this, because since being with him, he's clarified so many things to me about divine union. Your soulmate is your soulmate throughout eternity, okay? You are always looking for each other. You're literally the same soul incarnated into different bodies, and you're constantly searching for each other, okay? So when you're with other people, before you find each other, you're actually cheating on them, okay? Because you're not supposed to be with those other people, okay? Now, obviously, we're not like, you cheated on me, you motherfucker, and it was the same thing as like, oh, we might as well, like, it's not the same thing as if we both cheated now. Like, we get that, okay? We're obviously not stupid. We give each other grace, and we've forgiven each other for those transgressions. But yeah, we've had to cry a lot about stuff that both of us have done in our past. I know some people are like, you know, you should never answer questions about your past or your body count or whatever like that. And personally, I just think that when you're in a soulmate union, you're moving deeper and deeper into truth, okay? You're merging with each other. So at some point, you are going to know everything about each other. So the less you resist that, the faster you can actually merge and be actually in sacred union. And it's so beautiful. It's so divine. It's gorgeous. It's sexy. It's erotic. And it can be painful as well, okay? Because you have to shine a light on parts of your psyche where you carry shame, okay? And both of us have had to do that. Both of us have had to admit to each other things that we did in the past that we're shameful, and we do regret those things, okay? Sadly, a lot of people are like, no regrets, be empowered, be liberated, you know, you do whatever you want, sis, you go girl, you know, men do it too. And it's so sad. It's so sad what we're doing to each other, what we're doing to ourselves, you know? Like, just, if you've done things in your past that you know that your beloved would not be happy about, go to God, okay? Ask God for forgiveness and ask God to heal you from those distortions and to clear all that imprinting, to release any attachments that connect you to those previous partners. You know, you can do womb healing practices, purification practices, like using yoni eggs. I love the black obsidian yoni egg. I'm going to put a link actually in the description box where you can get the black obsidian egg that I use from Tay Wellness, so the Art Erotic. And there's a discount code as well. I've talked about that in previous videos. It's amazing for cord removal. Yoni steaming as well. I love yoni steaming. If you add some pine to your yoni steam brew, then that basically will purify your womb of any sexual shame. Again, this is not like, I'm not saying like you should all be ashamed. I'm just saying that naturally we're ashamed when we get into divine union, because when you're in divine union, the connection is so powerful and so different to anything that you've had with anyone else. It's like, it's multidimensional. Okay. I've literally, like, I downloaded new healing technologies while we've been in an intimate space. Okay. I can see into Dom's light body when we're intimate. Okay, I can heal his light body. I can see into my light body. I've never been able to do that with anyone. I'm seeing new templates upgrading as we're connecting in that way. Okay, I've bilocated into other dimensions while he's inside of me. Okay, that doesn't happen with just anyone. Okay, so yeah, you really don't need anyone else, and you don't want anyone else. And the thought of either of you looking sideways at anyone else is absolutely repulsive and heartbreaking. Okay, this is so not it, guys. This is so not divine union. This is like the opposite. This is like satanic union. So yeah, retroactive jealousy, if you experience it, also very normal and natural. Okay, it's not something that you need to heal. It's just something that you need to cry about, and both of you need to ask God's forgiveness. Okay, Dom and I will literally apologize for everyone that we've been with. Like, even people that we were in love with, that we had relationships with, will still apologize, because those relationships were so toxic. Like, when you're with somebody who's not your beloved, you're going to be fundamentally incompatible. Both of you are going to be hurting each other. I hurt those people because I was constantly trying to make them be like him, and vice versa. Hey love, so I hope you're enjoying episode 9, and if you are and you want more, consider joining my Patreon, where I share full uncensored podcast episodes with content that I feel is a little bit too spicy for YouTube. In this particular transmission, I share some details on how to navigate divine union around the subject of boundaries, jealousy, other people, stuff like that, shared from personal experience, from my own personal relationship with Dom and us being in divine union for about a year now. So there was some stuff that I just didn't want to share publicly here on YouTube, but I would love to be able to share with my inner circle. So if you're really resonating with what we're doing here, consider joining us over on Patreon. The link is in the description. There were also some codes that Dominick shared in the Gematria Decode that I also felt were more appropriate for our inner circle. And yeah, we will hopefully see you over there. And if you're wanting to join the Reclaim Your Voice webinar, which is going ahead, it's happening this Sunday. I'm not delaying it. It's going to be going ahead on Telegram. You can sign up in the link in the description. The early bird, by the time you see this, the early bird will probably be over, but it's still just £22 to join. It's going to be an absolute fire transmission around reclaiming your voice, speaking your authentic medicine, sharing your gifts with the world, free of the fear of persecution and silencing. And obviously I'm having to model that now that I've been completely deplatformed by Meta, and I'm going to go, something just came to me actually as I was just making dinner just now, which I shared in the previous video, that the particular, I'm going to save it for the webinar. Okay, I'm going to save it for the webinar. Don't want to get myself deplatformed off here. I hope you join me, and let's get back to the transmission. And so you're constantly trying to get that person to be like your soulmate, and when you find your soulmate, you'll be like, oh, this is it. This is what I was looking for. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Whitney says in the podcast, she says, I truly believe alcohol can be medicine. There were times where alcohol was medicine for me, okay, because she was sat at home sometimes when he would be out with another woman, and she would just be like, oh my God. Like, so she would go out, or she'd sit at home, or she'd go out with her friends and just get hammered. And that, she said in the podcast, we just got hammered. We had some fun times. So obviously she hooked up with a bunch of guys to try and numb the pain of being betrayed, essentially. But alcohol is not medicine. It will literally give you cirrhosis of the liver, guys, okay? Yeah, okay, it's you're self-medicating because you don't want to feel your emotions and you don't want to feel the truth that you're literally being harvested, betrayed, heartbroken, disrespected, and that you're actually not okay with this. So it will give you entity attachments as well. Yeah, so it's not just the alcohol that's probably causing them to get entity attachments, but probably also the plant medicines that they're doing. Like I said, if you don't seal properly before you consume any kind of plant medicine, including ganja spirit, so even if you're smoking a little bit of weed, pray over it and seal properly, okay? Make sure you seal and only connect to God. Declare that only, truth that comes directly from God will be able to enter into your consciousness, into your awareness, that you don't consent to any inorganic energies, you don't consent to any demonic energies. If there's any demonic energies that are attached to either of you, that you will be made aware of them and that you can remove them. You got to be really careful with plant medicine, and do give thanks to the plant spirit and the custodians of the land wherever you are, all of that stuff, but do make sure you do the proper sealing where you connect directly to source and you declare no trickster spirits, because a lot of people, when they work with these medicines, they're like, yeah, the plant spirits that are connected to whatever the medicine is, they're all good because they're spiritual. This is nonsense. This is false light. There are a lot of trickster spirits, okay, that are plant spirits, animal spirits, fae, all kinds of elementals can be demonic, okay? If they don't have that connection to Prime Creator and are following are in submission to Creator, then they can be trickster spirits that will try and deceive you, will try and latch onto you, will try and loose you. They can be people that have passed on, that want to get hooked onto your light body through your wounds. And sometimes those be a lot of the time, if they're people that are passed on that are demonic and whatever, sometimes they like to latch onto people to use that person as a host to fuck other people, okay, because a lot of them are very sexually perverted and they want to have sex with humans. So I think that that's what's happening here. I think that both of them, all of these people have got entities, okay, that are feeding on the emotional and sexual relational misery, and they also want to have sex with multiple people. And that can also happen to you with alien love bites, okay? If you're in an alien love bite or like a karmic interface or some kind of trauma bond with somebody that's not your soulmate, but you're still being like, you can't get out of it for whatever reason, you might have an entity attachment that's a person that's passed on. It could be two people that are passed on that want to use you and the other person as vessels to have sex with each other. Either they want to have sex with that human, or they want to have sex with the entity that the person is attached to the person, using your bodies. It's really dark, really demonic, okay? You guys need to be careful. If you're having issues with that, contact me for a session. I can remove those off you really easily. Okay. Like the whole podcast with Whitney just sounds like they just had the most toxic, abusive relationship where they're constantly just fighting and exploding. They don't even hide that, okay? It's crazy to me that people would look up to him as some kind of like leader. And look, I'm not saying that like in divine union everything's sunshine and rainbows either, okay? Me and Dom have also had some arguments. So don't think that just because you're having arguments that means that the person's not the person, but the person has to have a commitment to improving and taking on board what you're saying and meeting your emotional needs, and there needs to be marked improvement. You can't keep having, if you're having the same circular argument over and over again, and things aren't improving, then that could be a sign that the person doesn't actually really care about you and they're not your person. Okay, so yeah, they're talking about how the butterflies go away unless you open up the container. Because once you open up the container, then you have the fear of losing each other, and so then you still develop that passion. And like, if the butterflies are going away, you're losing attraction to each other, because you're starting to learn over time that this person might not be your person. Okay, the butterflies don't go away when you're in divine union. Okay, yes, sometimes when life gets in the way, you're busy, you're both doing things, sometimes the sexual energy can get put on the back burner, because especially as women, we need to feel relaxed in order to let our sexual energy unfurl a lot of the time, unless we have sexual leaks and distortions. If you've actually been through the process of sexual purification and been through a period of celibacy to prepare yourself for divine union, a lot of the time, if you're doing your mission work, that sexual energy will start getting alchemized and transmuted into your gifts. And if you're not giving yourself enough time to relax and emotionally connect with your partner, sometimes the sexual energy can go on the back burner. But if you're in a true divine union, the sexual energy and the attraction doesn't actually go away. You don't need it to be activated by other people, okay? Because just the idea of losing your partner in general is awful, okay? And it can happen, okay? You could lose the whole idea that you'll never lose your soulmate. You don't need to watch your soulmate have sex with somebody else or go on a date with somebody else to reignite that spark, okay? You already have that spark for your soulmate, because they're what you're looking for. Just using jealousy to reignite a spark where the connection is dying because you're not soulmates, that's self-abuse, and is also abuse of the other people. And when you're like so miserable because your partner's now going out and fucking other women, so you go, okay, I'm gonna go out and fuck other men, you're literally spreading your sexual misery to other people now. And not saying that those people aren't consenting as well, but like, a lot of the time, if you're just having like casual sex with all these different people, you don't know what kind of entanglements or relationships those people are in. Like, part of the reason why we're seeing so much infidelity is because of casual sex. People are just going around having sex with people without properly vetting if those people are in other relationships or not. If you're just going out and meeting some random guy and then going back to a hotel room, you don't know if he's married or not. Like, why would you? Obviously, you're not responsible. You kind of are, okay? You kind of are responsible for being part of that dynamic and being responsible for being a homewrecker, basically. Yes, the man is more responsible because it's him that took the vow, but you don't say that you're also not responsible for that dynamic. And it's the same for men. If you're taking somebody else's wife home and taking her back to a hotel room and you don't really know whether she's in a relationship or whether she's married or not, she could even have children at home. Like, guys, come on, stop spreading sexual misery. When you're truly in divine union and doing your mission together, there's no time for any other connections. There literally isn't time, okay? I don't understand how they're actually doing their missions if they're just having time for 2 or 3 other relationships. So if the sexual energy isn't flowing together, it's often because it's not being alchemized, transmuted and alchemized into a shared mission and into shared creative pursuits, okay? Usually those shared creative pursuits will generate more emotional closeness between you guys and more love and more connection and more sacred union, okay? They can also invite demonic attack as well, okay? Both me and Dom have experienced it, that when we were putting out our podcast, for example, or other things that we were creating and putting out into people, grid work, that we would get demonically attacked because dark forces did not like what we were doing, and they don't like what we're doing. That's part of the reason why I think that they've also deplatformed me. But it's how you navigate that, okay? If you're able to navigate that and then come back into emotional closeness, trust me, the fires will definitely keep burning. Hurting your partner is inevitable. Oh, you're a mirror for their insecurities. Wow, what the fuck? I don't even know what to say to that. Okay, maybe hurting your partner is inevitable, like inadvertently. Like sometimes when me and Dom have got triggered, We've said things that the other person's taken in the wrong way and hurt each other, but we're never trying to hurt each other, and we would never knowingly do something that would hurt each other, okay? We've had multiple conversations about what our boundaries are and how we define monogamy. Like, what are we okay with? Like, are we okay with, you know, having, you know, opposite sex friends? How do we engage with them? Like, you know, how our social media interactions, what's okay, what's not okay. And whatever somebody enforces as a standard, if one person says, okay, I'm not comfortable with this, if in your relationship either one of you is uncomfortable with something, you should just both agree to it. Like, that's what I think is divine union, okay? Like, when people are like, oh, what if the person's trying to control you? It's just like, if you're actually in a divine union, you would never want to control the other person. But if you actually really love each other, you would never want to do anything that makes your person feel uncomfortable. So yeah, these are conversations that need to be had. It's not like, I'm going to do this and you have to be okay with it. And if you're insecure or jealous, that's an insecurity that you need to work on, that you need to, you know, grow past your edge, which is basically how polyamorous people believe. That's what they think. I know, because I did a lot of research into it when I was studying that lifestyle, and it's so inverted, and I think it's very gaslighty and very abusive. It's a very disembodied way of relating, and that's why I can't ever endorse polyamory. You're a mirror for their insecurities. Just fuck off. So I do like that both him and Whitney advised people not to do this. They were just like, we're not saying that you guys should do this. This is just our journey and our path. If you're doing it just for the sex or for sexual variety, it's really not worth it, okay? They were doing it for growth and whatever. And they're just very lost, okay? I will just say that they're just very lost, and I'm going to pray for them. Like, I'm glad that Whitney's woken up to it, because Whitney actually posted, when all of this came out, she did a little thought on her Instagram talking about spiritual narcissists and how they'll use all this word salad to try and spiritually manipulate you. And we all know who she was talking about. So I was just like, okay, she's just called it. She's obviously was with him for like 6 or 7 years. I think like 8 years she was with him. And if she's calling him a spiritual narcissist, I believe her. So this is something that Emily's been speaking on as well. He's basically suffering, and this is probably also because of his trip to Egypt, a dark father or Enki overlay. So Enki is you know, from the Sumerian pantheon. He's an Anunnaki alien god or demigod that would have this kind of dark father, Yahweh consciousness around, you know, the false tyrannical king, basically, and like borrowed power, having multiple consorts or a harem of women. And it's that this kind of demonic overlay that he's basically portaling. He's portaling this consciousness, and you can even hear it in the language, because they're talking about like the false king and the, you know, you are the false king. Like that's a consciousness that you're channeling, Aubrey. So it's a very patriarchal, misogynistic program. Yeah, so apparently Alana has a coach that teaches her divine union. I don't know exactly, I don't know the name of that coach, but that's something I'm going to look into a little bit more, because whoever her coach is clearly not teaching divine union. I think she was featured on Aubrey Marcus's podcast. This is just how, you know, like the people that they're probably having on that podcast are teaching such faulty codes, and they're such gatekeepers. This whole, it's really, really exposing people. And I think a lot of the conversations that me and Freya were having in our podcast, talking about the deafening silence in the spiritual community on the Israel's genocide of the Palestinian people, it's really, really exposing people, because I think a lot of the people that didn't want to speak up on it are some of the people that are in some of these new age camps. They move in the same circles. They know some of these people. They maybe have friends, you know, friendships with some of these people. And some of these people are Zionists, okay? And I know that a lot of people are not speaking out about the genocide because they don't want to upset the Zionists in their friend list, okay? Like, Dom has even told me that he's had people say to him, like, oh, I have friends on both sides and I just don't want to get involved. And it's just like, if you have friends on both sides, I guarantee, or you think you have friends on both sides, I guarantee you the friends who are on the Palestinian side don't consider you a true friend. They're maybe just being nice and polite to you for the sake of social niceties, and maybe because they don't want to get killed. But if you're friends with Zionists, you're not a safe person to be around. So, yeah, like, and then, okay, so coming into the Layla Martin podcast, it's just like, everything is sacred. That kind of explains a lot. Is genocide sacred, Aubrey? Is white supremacy sacred? Is Zionism sacred? Is colonization sacred? Is cheating sacred? Are threesomes sacred? Are orgies sacred? What about orgies with underage people that are being forced to be there? Are they sacred? Because I'm going to push back and say not everything is sacred, okay? The word sacred literally means anything that brings you closer to God. And yes, we are seeing a lot of people in Gaza and the West Bank who, and people who are witnessing that, who are actually deepening in their faith and becoming closer to God as a result of witnessing those terrible atrocities. That doesn't make those atrocities sacred. Okay, that's some sabotage Zevi shit. Okay, that's like that fucking false messiah that was like basically the grandfather of the Illuminati. Okay, look up that guy. Some things are profane. Okay, that word has a meaning, and there are things that fall under the definition of profane. Okay, not everything is sacred. Things that bring you closer to God are sacred. Truth is sacred. Love is sacred. Profanity can show you what is not sacred, and by natural evolution, process of elimination, you could be like, oh, that's really not sacred. Okay, so sacred is that way. Okay, so yeah, God will use everything dark to serve the grand plan and is always trying to reach us. And in those darkest moments where we're the most lost, God will reach us in those moments. So I guess, and in that way, I can see what he's saying, if that's what he means. But that's some kind of salvation through sin, Sabbatai Zevi shit. And it kind of makes sense because Sabbatai Zevi was a Kabbalist. He developed Kabbalah was developed over the series of, I think it started emerging in the 13th century. Okay, didn't develop at the time as original Judaism. It kind of came later. And I think it actually borrows a lot from Hinduism and Tantra and Hermetic philosophy. But a lot of it is just inverted, okay? So it was, if Sabbatai Zevi is helping to develop Kabbalah, and he taught salvation through sin, like let's all have orgies, let's commit as much sin as possible because that will accelerate the coming of the Messiah. That's a satanic ideology. So he said he didn't want to get a prenup because he trusted that Vylana would go into the deep with him, that she would stick with him no matter what. Okay, I'm getting major narcissistic red flags here with that statement. Narcissists will literally target you as a codependent. They can spot when you don't have boundaries, okay? And he could obviously see that about her. Like, she's going to stick with him no matter what. So yeah, that's not sacred union, guys, okay? Sacred union is when you're in devotion and reverence to your person and you just want to protect them from harm, okay? You want to do everything to make them feel safe and secure. Yeah. And within sacred union, it's not like no matter what we stick together, okay? You're allowed to have deal breakers. Both me and Dom have deal breakers, okay? We've made it quite clear, if this happens, we walk away, okay, on both sides. And we don't care that, okay, yes, okay, he's my soulmate. If that, like, for me, there's certain things that I would rather be a cat lady and not be in union at all, or be with someone who's not my soulmate than tolerate certain things like abuse, things like cheating, things like a leaky container in which I don't feel safe, like flirting with other women, things like that. Like, obviously he would never do those things, but I have deal breakers. Okay. He has deal breakers. You absolutely should have deal breakers entering divine union. Okay. You have to be sovereign. Okay. You have to be empowered. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to be in divine union if you have no deal breakers. Just go be with somebody else. Go be with somebody else, or be with multiple, be a serial monogamist, okay? Be with somebody for 2 years, and when it doesn't work out, go be with somebody else. Don't be with your soulmate. If they're abusing you, if they're cheating on you, if they're calling you names, if they're making you feel unsafe, like, don't do it. Okay, so one thing that they do seem to get right is the shared mission aspect of a divine union. Okay, so obviously I can see why people follow them, because there's so many codes that they dropped where there was truth. Okay, it's about they use words like dharma and, you know, the shared mission and sharing gifts and, you know, coming into union and doing their dharma together. That's 100% true. Okay, that is what the soulmate union is all about. Yeah, so in the Layla Martin podcast, she calls him a divine masculine several times. Like, she is literally bumming him in this podcast. If you need multiple feminine mirrors to feel fulfilled, you are not divine masculine. You've not married your own internal divine feminine. And there's just one channel of your divine feminine, okay? When they merge and marry, it's just one masculine, one feminine in sacred union, okay? If you need multiple feminine mirrors, that's not divine masculine. You're an unintegrated masculine. Okay, no shame, no hate, no shade. It's just is what it is. Okay, he's not divine masculine yet. Maybe he'll get there, but he's not there yet. Okay, so one thing that they brought up in the Layla Martin podcast that I do agree with was when they were talking about the full fuck yes. Like, when you meet someone and you're like, a full fuck yes, this is it. Like, no doubts, no hesitations. And that is absolutely the case with divine union. That's what I was like when I started talking to Dom. Everything just started to slot into place. I was just like, yes, 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 yes. Or, like, obviously there are some areas where you're like, what's this? I need to do a little bit more investigation. Like some of the things that he's learned spiritually, I had to question, and I was just like, okay, is this a deal breaker for you if I don't necessarily agree with this? Like, for example, Dom doesn't believe in ETs, and he was just like, it's not a deal breaker. Like, you know, I'm always open to being proven wrong. I'm a truth seeker, and I'm just like, okay, I'm going to look into your spiritual beliefs. He has some slightly different spiritual beliefs, and the more I've looked into them, the more I've actually changed some of my spiritual beliefs. He's also learned stuff from me as well. So it's just things like that. Okay, it's not like actual red flags like, oh my god, he might be polyamorous. Do you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, a full fuck yes. And I remember going through this when I was in my karmic interface with my previous person that I was with. There's a twin flame soulmate couple that I was connected to on Facebook. Obviously I don't have a Facebook anymore, called Lukaija and Saskia. I do believe that Saskia trained with Emily. I apologize if that's not true, but she does very similar work to Emily with the quantum field work. And they are a beautiful couple. Like, I get a really good read from their energy. They definitely seem to be a divine union couple. They even look like each other. Very similar soul signature. They're both very like soft, angelic, pure-hearted people. That's the read I get from them. Yeah, there was a post that Saskia made where she was talking about how, like, when they met, like, their souls recognized each other as, like, their person. And when I saw that, because I was in my karmic interface, I was just like, come on. And Layla Martin talks about this as well. Like, when she said that she first came across, like, Aubrey and Vylana, she was like, that's not real. And she's just like, come on, they've just met each other. This is not responsible. Like, he should know better. He's a teacher. He shouldn't be, like, saying this about his relationship so early on. But it really is like that, okay? Like, you know, at the time I was a little triggered by it. I was just like, no, can't be. But I knew it was true. Like, I knew that they had that experience. But I was just like, come on. not everybody's going to have that experience with that person. It's not always going to be like that. Sometimes you don't know. And I mean, if I wish I had listened at that time, because then I could have avoided a lot of the bullshit that happened and how our relationship just imploded. And I am going to tell the story at some point, that our relationship imploded in just... Yeah, I wish I'd had the courage to leave before that, but I think just the fear of not ever finding this thing, like when you're in a relationship that feels good enough, it's too difficult to leave it for that amazing soulmate union. And it got to a point where the relationship got so bad and fell apart that I was just like, okay, I'd rather be single than deal with this. So you might get to that point. Like if you're in a relationship and you're not really sure if the person is the one and you're too scared to leave it because you're not sure if the one actually exists, just wait. Like it will implode. Like you're not going to just be in a like good enough relationship forever. As long as you're focusing on your inner union and you're not continually compromising to make it work, keep submitting to God and keep activating your natural gifts and your natural templating and doing what God tells you to do, doing your soul mission. It will literally crumble. The karmic interface will literally crumble and the new person will step in. It happened exactly like Emily predicted that it would. It didn't happen exactly in the same timing that she said it would. It took a lot longer. But she did say, like, when I was getting back together with my ex, she was just like, if this is not the person, then I'm seeing, because your union template is already active, that this relationship will fall away and then the new person will just step in. And that happened. It literally happened like that. It was like it crumbled and I'm like, oh, that's him. It took a couple of months for us to really be like, okay, 100% sure, but I didn't really have to wait. So yeah, the full fuck yes definitely exists. And like, look, Aubrey Marcus and Vylana seem to have that full fuck yes, but it seems like she's compromising so much of what she really truly wants in a soulmate union in order to maintain this full fuck yes. And then they talk about the tragic and then they have to go through the tragic. I'm just like, that tragic is basically showing you that it's not a full fuck yes. Okay, maybe it felt like a full fuck yes in the beginning, but you could have been feeling the full fuck yes because he was mirroring some similar aspects to your true soul union, and now is revealing, now that you've healed a little bit more and you know that you want monogamy, your person is also going to be monogamous. But she needs to heal. She needs to heal and really choose herself, as she said that she needed to do in a previous podcast, that she was cheated on in previous partners because she wasn't choosing herself. Again, she's betraying herself, and that's why. You need to just, I hope you get out, Vylana. Yeah, I really hope that you get out. Yeah, this was also another narcissistic red flag, where she is talking in the podcast with Layla Martin about how they had issues, mostly because of her trust issues. Layla even echoes this later on, where she's just like, you married the perfect man. Like loads of women will be like, oh my God, how do we achieve this divine union? Oh, well, it's easy for her because she married the perfect man. You have more stuff to work on than him, which is just nonsense. Okay. She's being so emotionally gaslit. Okay, babe. If you see this, I mean, I'm sure she's not going to see it, but like Vylana has trust issues because she's with a man that is not trustworthy. He's not loyal and fully devoted to her. That's why she has trust issues, and she's literally gaslighting herself. She doesn't have more to work on than him. He also has shit to work on. The thing that she needs to work on is knowing that she deserves better and listening to her own feelings and her own... you don't need to keep pushing past your edges. You need to say, this is my edge and I'm not willing to tolerate anything more than this. And if you don't want that, then you can walk away. But I think partly also the money and the status is also what's keeping her there. And, the other women as well. But the thing is, like I said, where the high status men will siphon the womb creational power of multiple women to help him manifest more, you're being harvested. Okay, you can create so much more. She could be so much more powerful even just by herself, but when she gets into union with her actual divine union, she could be so much more powerful than what she is with him right now. Okay, everybody's seeing it. Everybody's seeing it. And I think that this isn't going to be too good for their business. Maybe amongst muggles, because they are massive gatekeepers that, you know, misappropriate ancient wisdom and use all these false light teachers to kind of sell stuff. But the true seekers are obviously going to be looking beneath the surface and going to be trying to find the real healers who don't have as big a platform. You know, a lot of us are being massively shadow banned and silenced by the control systems because we are a threat. I mean, look at what just happened to me, okay? Like, so many of the real ones that I know are so shadow banned. So it's the podcast with Layla is revealing this program around not just that podcast, but just all of it. I'm just seeing this program play out, that if you want to have this divine masculine man that's on his mission and is high status, you're going to have to share him with other women, because there's not enough to go around and they're so rare. And look, ladies, I know that the bar is in hell when it comes to men. Part of that is because of us and our very, very low standards. In fact, not even part of it, okay? It's because of us and our very, very low standards. That's why I keep on saying I don't believe in a patriarchy. I believe in the hidden hand. I believe in the matriarchy behind the patriarchy. We have the power. And if all of us just said, hey, we're going to go 4B, I fully support 4B movement, okay? Like I've said, I have a lot of issues with feminism, but there's a lot of feminist teachings that I very much agree with, like all the radical feminism, anti-porn stuff, the 4B movement. Like a lot of people are critiquing 4B because they're just like, well, humanity will die out. And I'm just like, well, if you care so much about whether humanity will die out, why don't you teach men to be better, teach your sons to be better, so that humanity doesn't die out, okay? Because these women are sick of your shit and they would rather be single cat ladies than deal with this sexual and relational misery bullshit, okay? Because we're just not here for it. I actually like being single. Like, I don't mind being single at all. Like, women are so devotional and so caring and nurturing that a lot of the time we do sacrifice ourselves in relationships, and when we don't have anybody to take care of but ourselves, it's actually very liberating and very freeing. I think that we're not as emotionally dependent on relationships as men are, especially as we get older. Men start to need relationships more and more as they get older. Women need them less and less. Now, if you're in a truly divine union, a man is actually supposed to make your life easier, okay? If he's not making your life easier, then just don't even fuck with it. Like, don't even waste your time, okay? Because you are getting loosed. You are getting siphoned. You are getting harvested. Go 4B until a man comes into your life that truly wants to devote himself to you in sacred union, make your life easier, support your divine mission because he shares the same mission and he cares about the same things that you do. Don't do it, okay? Just wait for your soulmate. I wish I had. I really wish that I had, okay? I would love to be able to say, you know, I did this perfectly. I didn't do it perfectly. Like, learn from my mistakes, okay? Because unfortunately, there were things that happened in my karmic interface that have damaged me in a way that has caused issues in my relationship, okay? And Dom has been very patient with me with some of the trust issues that I developed as a result of being with somebody who was eventually unfaithful because of the incompatibility. Well, he was unfaithful because he's a piece of shit and didn't have good moral integrity, and I was projecting moral integrity onto him because that's what my soulmate has, and Dom has like ridiculously high moral integrity, and turns out he just wasn't that person at all, and he was hiding. He's a dismissive avoidants tend to hide who they are a lot. That's why I would advise you to not get into a relationship with somebody who's a dismissive avoidant. You don't have to share your divine masculine with others. You don't have to compete with other women, okay? Only you are coded to be with your true soulmate. Only you have the templating for him, okay? Everything that he's looking for, you will embody, okay? Because you're his person. You're the other half of his soul. So for that reason, nobody can take him away from you. If another woman can steal your man, firstly, that wasn't your man to begin with, and secondly, he's not worth having, okay? So you should never need to worry about having to share a man or having to compete with other women. Yeah, so he was like, I'm going to Frankenstein monster my perfect Vylana from all these other women. That tells me that she's not his soulmate. Okay, yes, okay, he found his Vylana, his queen, but he's still having to seek the goddess in many faces, because I just don't believe that she is his soulmate. He hasn't found her yet. And I don't think he's going to find her yet, because being in a karmic interface will block your divine union. Your divine union probably might not even recognize you if you're in a relationship with somebody else. They can, but you're not going to recognize them because you're in that relationship. And if you're thinking that that's the person that you're in the relationship with is your soulmate, you're not going to think that somebody else is your soulmate. Maybe if you're poly like he is and looking for the goddess in other faces, then he might, but still, it's gross, and he's not prepared for divine union. And to be honest, I don't think he deserves it right now. If they keep continuing to seek the inner union and work on their natural templating and heal their emotional injuries, eventually the alien love bite that they're in will dissolve. And I hope that happens for them. I really, really hope that both of them find the person that they're supposed to be with and get out of this sexual misery templating. Oh, yeah, okay, guys, this is so gross. He talks about his ex-fiancée, Caitlin, who he's still very dear friends with, and they're very dear friends with. I don't know if they have threesomes with her as well. But, he talks about how they didn't work out, but he was just like, if we'd had the technology and the tools back then, maybe I could have had the sacred union with her. He literally says that in front of his wife, that if he'd had the tools that he has now, he would have been able to have a divine union with this other woman that he was with, who he's still friends with. Like, guys, that's so leaky. That's so not divine union. That's so insulting and disrespectful to your wife to say that. And that's clear evidence that he doesn't understand what divine union actually is, because that's not a soulmate union. That's not a genetic equal. If you can have a soulmate union or a divine union with just anyone or just whoever you choose, then that's not divine union. And look, I understand why people have these distortions, because when I was in my karmic interface, I also believed this, that there wasn't a one, and that the divine union is you and God, and then whatever mirror is whatever relationship you get into, the mirror will reflect your inner the state of your inner union with God. And yeah, that I was actually studying Kabbalah at the time. I didn't know it was Kabbalah at that time. I just thought it was like Hermetic philosophy, law of assumption, Neville Goddard. But the more I studied it, the more I realized it was Kabbalah. And I was just like, well, maybe there's still some truth in it, but just be very careful, guys, okay? Divine union is you and your soulmate. There isn't another. You can't have it with another person. It's just you and that person. That person's the one, okay? And if somebody is being abusive to you, it's probably a sign that might not be that person, okay? Just keep going, keep looking for them. Oh yeah, this was also really gross, what Layla Martin says to Aubrey right here.
I consider you to be one of the most like desirable, sexy men on the planet. So the fact that you had to find that level of love, that it might be a no, but you were still going to love and be in that truth anyways, rather than push it away. That's given me courage in some of my darker moments.
How disgusting and disrespectful. Like this... I'm sorry, but this is not okay. And the fact that she even feels comfortable to sexually project onto Aubrey in front of his wife just tells me that they just don't have good boundaries. They just don't. They just don't. And, Layla, just go find your own soulmate and stop projecting onto other people's person. It's really trampy, and it's not respectful of the template of divine union, okay? Layla Martin even reveals towards the end that she's actually in a relationship with somebody, and talks about how that person has avoidant tendencies and they're not a full fuck yes. So honestly, it sounds so similar to what I was in. Like, the fact that she's even talking about that, like, I would never talk about that with anybody other than maybe like a therapist, okay? There's such a betrayal of the relationship, just airing your dirty laundry like that in public is so disrespectful, okay? That's just not what you do, okay? Now, you know, could you say that, you know, what I'm talking about here in my relationship with Dom is airing our dirty laundry? No, because I'm not talking bad about him, and I would never. And there's nothing really bad that I have to say about him anyway, because like, he's my beloved and I feel super loved by him. Yes, neither of us are perfect, but we're working on our stuff. And yeah, it's just, God, I can't imagine ever saying publicly, I'm not a full fuck yes to this. Like, and flirting with my podcast guest in front of their partner, just so gross. Come on. Yeah, so, you know, when you've got people that are settling for relationships that are not a full fuck yes, they tend, because that container isn't safe, they end up projecting and spreading that sexual misery to everyone and normalizing toxicity. That's where you get things like, oh, it's normal to find other people attractive, and, you know, projecting onto other people's partners and things like that. It's just so leaky and gross. And it basically it's why so many of our divine unions are being blocked, okay? So that's why people are like, oh, I don't care what other people do. It's just like, well, you can say that, but like, they're affecting everybody, okay? Because they're not contained. When they're not contained in their own divine union, they're spreading it. They're spreading that misery to other people. Okay, I get that different people have different boundaries around what's okay and what's not okay in their relationship. And, you know, Vylana and Aubrey seem to be fine with Layla flirting with Aubrey in front of them. But it's just like, in divine union, it's gross. It's disloyal behavior to be sexually projecting onto others, or to allow others to sexually project onto you without maintaining boundaries and shutting that down. So me and Dom have very strict boundaries. Well, not very strict. We have normal boundaries for divine union. But compared to what the collective has normalized in our sexual misery culture, they would be considered strict, okay? We don't allow other people to sexually project onto us. We don't like that. It makes us upset. Both of us, it's upsetting for both of us, okay, when that happens. It's not just upsetting for him when people project onto me, or for me when people project onto him. Both of us are disgusted by it, okay? It feels violating and rapey, and we don't like it, and we have quite clear boundaries that we don't engage with people who do that. And if people do it repeatedly, disrespecting, or they do it knowing that we're in union, we eliminate them from our field. We unfriend them or block them or whatever. So that's how we function. Y'all can decide how you want to do it, how you want to deal with that in your relationship. It obviously needs to be consensual between the both of you, and you both agree. And whoever has the the higher degree of uncomfortability sets the standard, I think. Okay, that's my opinion. I don't think that you should be putting your partner, continually making your partner uncomfortable. So yeah, and if you have friends who have leaky unions that have leaks and distortions and things like that are a little open, or into this kind of lifestyle stuff, or, you know, are maybe not super loyal or super faithful to their partners, those people are not super safe to have around your union, okay? Because even if they haven't projected onto either one of you, there's no telling that they wouldn't, or they'd just be, you know, promoting those ideas and that culture and normalizing that behavior. Obviously, you should be trusting your partner enough to not engage in those kinds of behaviors and mentalities and mindsets, but still, it's just, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be friends with those people, okay? Because that's a lot of people. And then we just don't be friends with anybody, because how many of us are actually in divine union? But you need to hold a really, really solid frame, and you need to let those people know that you don't condone that you don't agree with that you don't support it, and that you don't want that spreading to your relationship. And maintain really good boundaries with those people. So yeah, like with the whole, you know, Layla projecting onto Aubrey, yeah, some people are actually not offended, or they don't have they even like that kind of thing when somebody's like saying that your man is sexy, or you know, like that they find your partner attractive. Some people are into that. It's possible that people are into that because they might have what I've seen in in the light body is it's a sexual misery implant called the Cook. And it basically is a deer head. It basically looks like with the horns, the cuckold. And it's it's an implant that's put there by demonic forces, and it will be in like a tear in the auric field in which there's some kind of betrayal trauma, where you're now getting some kind of sexual pleasure and sexual satisfaction from other people finding your person sexually attractive or wanting to fuck your other person, fuck your partner. And it's just a sexual misery implant. Like, once you remove it, you'll no longer feel that way. So, I'm going to do more group webinars where we clear some of these sexual misery templates. Obviously, first we're going to do the Reclaim Your Voice one, but there's more coming, okay? Because there's so many healing technologies that I've been able to download directly from the field, things that I haven't been taught by my mentor. Obviously, she trained me into how to do all of this, but I've been downloading so many of my own healing technologies and seeing my own the field has been revealing certain implants to me that need to be cleared. So I'll be bringing more group activations and clearings for you guys, so that if if doing a one-on-one session with me is outside of your budget, there will be more group activations coming. Yeah, so he mentions the great goddess Shekinah in that podcast. Okay, now I've mentioned Shekinah before, but in Kabbalah, Shekinah is basically the divine feminine in Kabbalah. But within that system, they teach that Shekinah and Lilith are two sides of the same coin. And I've spoken about Lilith before. Lilith predates Kabbalah, predates Judaism, predates everything that Judaism borrows from, and goes all the way back to the Sumerian Old Babylonian religions, okay? And the Lilu, which the name Lilith is based on, is basically a class of succubi demons. Okay, so the divine feminine is not a succubus demon. She's not she's not one side, the divine feminine, and the other side a succubus demon. Okay, succubus demon will attach onto the wound of the feminine light body, the feminine collective, your Sophianic energy, and it needs to be pulled off and sent back to source if it's willing to go. If it's not willing to go, it can go to outer realms. Okay, you don't want to be working with Lilith. You don't want to be integrating Lilith. Okay. And it's the Lilith energy, the Lilith entity. If you've got Lilith attached to your field, it will run a lunar reversal in your feminine energy. It will invert your feminine energy, and it will create this program of needing to compete with other women and magnetize as much masculine energy as you can. So if you look into some of the teachings that are being taught in the kind of feminine energy spaces, a lot of the teachers that are teaching things like dark feminine energy and integrating your feminine energy with your dark feminine energy, a lot of them are about like working with Lilith. Okay, and they will literally openly say this, working with this energy will help you attract any man to you. You don't want to be pulling in the energy of any and every man, okay? That's a sexual misery template and a distortion, okay? Stop trying to siphon the energy of everybody else's man, okay? That's gross. It's trampy. It's not divine union, okay? You should only be pulling the sexual energy of your own divine masculine, your soulmate, okay? Everybody else is a brother to you, okay? That's how it is, okay? Yes, you can notice if they're good looking and have good bone structure and good genetic makeup, but they are your brothers and your uncles and your father, okay? We're all like children of God. We're all one human family. Everyone other than your soulmate is your brother. They're not somebody that you should be pulling sexual energy from, okay? I'm sorry, like, I'm not trying to shame anyone here. I'm just trying to correct some of these distortions. I had some of these distortions as well, okay? It's only since getting into divine union. I've learned so much of this. Yes, I learned a lot of the stuff from my teacher, but I've learned so much more from Dom, okay? And because Dom has been preparing for divine union actually longer than me. He had his awakening when he was about 23 and cleared the sexual misery templating. Obviously, that doesn't mean that he was protected from karmic interfacing. But, yeah, he's kind of been on the path of sexual purification for longer than I have. I had more reversals that I had to clear. And I am going to bring him on to have, because he's got a few things that he wants to say and that I want him to say, because I want you guys to hear from him, because so much of this does come from him as well. He doesn't have as much time as I do to make, you know, lots of podcasts and lots of content, because he works a very demanding job. But lots of what I'm transmitting is our codex, okay? That a lot of it comes from him. In Kabbalah they also teach that God and Satan, and God in Kabbalah is Yahweh, okay? And I've already spoken about Yahweh. Yahweh is a fallen Elohim. Yahweh is not God. That's why you get all these genocidal passages in the Old Testament. God would never tell you to go and kill men, women, children, sucklings. God would never tell you to sacrifice your own child, okay? That's a fallen angelic, that's a demon. Yahweh is a demon. And in Kabbalah, they teach that Yahweh and Satan are the same, that they're two sides of the same coin. And that's actually true. Like, Satan's not a real entity. Satan is just the opposer, anybody that goes against God or opposes God. And Yahweh is that, okay? I'm sorry, like, I know some of y'all follow some of these religions. It's just not, that's not God. Okay, so a common comment that I'm seeing in a lot of the comment sections in, you know, I watched a couple of videos where people responded to the controversy and weighed in on their voice, and men in particular, women kept on saying, I noticed that women were like, feels so good to hear a man weigh in on this, and a man, to hear this coming from a man. Ladies, why do you need men to weigh in on this? Don't you know that you have had the power all along, okay? We don't need men to dictate our frame, okay? We don't need to tell men that it's okay to want what we want, okay? We are the ones that dictate culture, okay? If we keep on settling for low bar treatment, then that's what we're going to keep on getting. If we all say collectively, we're not tolerating this anymore, we're all going to go 4B until we're treated properly, men will have to start to behave, okay? You don't need men to weigh in. Okay, it's great that men are weighing in and calling this bullshit, sure, but we've been able to say that we don't want this the whole time, okay? You're literally outsourcing your power to men, okay? That's not true feminine power. Stop outsourcing your power. Okay, you get to decide what's okay and what's not okay. We can literally start and end lineages by what we allow into our womb space. We've literally always had the power. So we don't need men to say that this is bullshit. We can just say it ourselves. But yeah, it's great that men are saying that they also think that this is bullshit. And I am gonna have Dom weigh in, because obviously he thinks this is bullshit as well. So if y'all need a man to weigh in, then, you know, obviously I have one and he's gonna weigh in. Sorry, I just had to get something warm and cozy. So yeah, stay till the end, and then if you want to hear what Dom has to say, because I get that women need proper examples of divine masculinity, or men who are on the divine union path. Okay, I'm not going around calling myself a divine feminine or Dom and divine masculine, because honestly that's really cringy. And to truly embody both of those energies is practically like you've reached enlightenment, okay? We both have work that we need to do. We both have stuff that we're healing. We've had distortions that we've had to make each other aware of, okay, that we're both healing. Yeah, I will have him weigh in, okay? Because I do think that it's important that women have these examples of, men who are on the divine union path, just to show what's possible, okay? Because if you didn't have that templating from your fathers and your grandfathers, you know, our mothers and our grandmothers went through so much, okay? They couldn't go 4B because firstly, we wouldn't be here if they did, and secondly, because a lot of the time women didn't have freedom. Like, you know, it wasn't that long ago that women really weren't able to access good jobs. Like, the only jobs that were available to women were to, like, unmarried women to work as secretaries or doing, like, sex work, burlesque dancing and things like that. Like, it's only been in the last couple of decades that women have actually that the workforce is open to women. So, you know, in some countries you couldn't even like vote until like the 80s. It was still legal to beat and rape your wife in the 90s, okay? I'm not, you know, as much as I do criticize some aspects of feminism, I don't dispute the fact that it's always been needed. I just have some issues with some of the narratives around it. I don't think that men should ever have been absolved of their responsibility to protect and provide, okay? But women should obviously be able to access the workforce, but I don't think we should be forced to be like 50-50 providers while we're also being mothers and homemakers. That's just ridiculous. It's so unfair, and it's just why we're having so many issues with our womb spaces and with our fertility and perimenopause and menopause and stuff. Is just causing hormonal imbalances. That's a whole other rant. I don't want to get in too much into that. But I was listening to a podcast with, I'm not sure exactly, it's the 3 guys with beards who were all talking about, you know, they seem to be like in the conservative space, and they were saying some amazing things. But one of the things that they did say, I'll put a link or a card or something. One of the things that they noticed was that some of the people that they know who are polyamorous are all having health issues with like fertility, particularly around fertility, because obviously the body is screaming that this is not healthy. And one of them said that his partner actually was able to reverse her perimenopause when he kind of stepped up as a provider in her life, because she was able to finally relax and start, you know, respecting and regulating her nervous system. Okay, because I just don't think that women are built to work for 10 hours a day every day. Okay, we have a monthly cycle and we need to respect it. Yeah, okay, going back to the Layla Martin podcast, Aubrey Marcus says, we have some unconventional aspects to our monogamous sacred union. No, Aubrey Marcus, you're just a bullshitter and a gaslighter, and just calling something a monogamous sacred union does not make it a monogamous sacred union. This is more Kabbalah bullshit, that truth is completely subjective and it's just what you assume it to be, and you can just call things whatever that you want and that makes it that, okay? He says that we're on the one end of the... what was the name of the person? I don't know, I'll put a screenshot here of the person that he said, this is her definition of, she has a scale of what monogamy is. I'm sorry, but if you're like hooking up with other people, that's not monogamy in any type of way. Like, yes, okay, maybe some people's version of monogamy is they're okay with like maybe keeping some contact with their exes, especially if you have shared custody of children, then that might still be part of your monogamy. Or maybe it's okay for you to go for lunch with like an opposite sex friend. That might still be okay in your monogamy. But if you're like, oh yes, you can still have sex, you can go have sex with my friend, or I can have sex with your friend, or we can both have sex with each other's friends, or other people, or new people, or let's all have a threesome together, that's not monogamy. Why do we have to... This is just... I can't believe that... I mean, I'm glad that people are calling it out, but it's crazy that like in the comment section of that podcast, nobody flagged this, because she literally said, I'm going to put a clip here.
Yeah. I call it California monogamy, where you're like, we're really dedicated to each other. We just hook up with our hot friends together. Because like my puritanical ancestors would not call that monogamy, but it's some form. It's like...
I mean, I agree. California monogamy. It's like a California stop. It's where you kind of roll through it a little bit.
Totally. Well, have you heard of California sober?
No.
I'm just on a little LSD.
Oh my God.
So that's when I was like, I think it's California monogamy, when you're like, we roll together, but we'll hook up with our hot friend.
California monogamy. We hook up with our hot friends. That's not monogamy, okay? Like, I don't know why anybody trusts these people. You're talking shit. You're lying to people. We all know that they're lying, and yet they're still lying. It's like Israel. Like, we know that they're lying, and yet they'll still just do it to our faces. And people take this seriously and put it on TV. It's just, we're being so fucking gaslit. I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of it. That is not monogamy, nor is it sacred union. Oh. it's called being open or poly. Just call it what it is. And I part of this whole thing about like just the demonic laughing as well in this clip. You know, it kind of tracks because Layla obviously is an expert on Tantra, Neo-Tantra. Neo-Tantra which is basically what, unless it's proper white sacred Tantra, which is like you know, like Kundalini Yoga, which is obviously also a distorted system, which I spoke about previously. But like Kriya Yoga, for example, is like alchemizing the sexual energy. And it's just something that you do yourself. It's not something that you do with a partner. Okay, there are some sacred sexual practices in pure white Tantra. And I don't even like the classification of white, red, black Tantra, okay? Because it's like saying white Christianity is Christianity, red Christianity is Luciferianism, and black Christianity is Satanism. Tantra is Tantra, okay? And it's not even about sex. Tantra is about like the study of light body architecture and the process of unification with the one, okay? That's what it is. So yes, it does involve some sublimation of sexual energy because that's your life force, your Kundalini, and merging and alchemizing the masculine and feminine energies in the temple of the body as a process of Hieros Gamos, okay? So yes, it does have some overlapping with sexuality, but it's not about having sex with loads of different people. It's about just finding your beloved, your soulmate union, okay? That's proper Tantra. The whole Neo-Tantra stuff, it's all comes from lineage from Osho, who was a cult leader, and a narcissist, and I don't know if he was a sexual predator, but there were lots of weird, gross things that were happening at his weird places, his like intentional communities that he was setting up. They even poisoned a whole town because that they went to war with because they were promoting all this weird sexual degeneracy that the town was not happy with. And Aleister Crowley, who was a Satanist, he introduced Tantra to the West, okay? He introduced basically Tantric teachings and distorted them and turned them into like the sex magic. And Layla Martin also talks a lot about sex magic. And I'm not saying that that you can't use sex to manifest, okay? It's really powerful for manifestation with your beloved. Don't be doing it with just any random person that you met at the Tantra retreat. And most of these Tantra retreats are just weird, rapey, gropey, predatory places. Like I stayed clear of all of that, okay? I spoke to a couple of people who were teaching in a board about what kind of stuff they teach there. And they literally will make you eye gaze with a stranger or do like conscious non-sexual touch. I'm sorry, I don't want to be touched by a stranger. Like, don't touch me. Like I'm not saying that like I never go to the hairdresser or have like a makeup artist do my like, but just I don't want like a weird random dude that I've just met to be eye gazing with me and stroking my arm and in a non-sexual way, or they do like cuddle parties. It's just there's so much grossness, and it's not true Tantra. So yeah, one of the things that this particular person that he referenced said in that TED talk was just, we need new models of monogamy, we need to redefine monogamy because 25 to 60% of people will cheat at some point in their marriage. And I'm just like, okay, like that actually doesn't sound like bad odds. That means 40% of people will never cheat. That's okay, I can live with those odds, okay? Hopefully I'm married to somebody who's in the 40% and not the 60%. Then she goes, 98% of people will fantasize about another person. If your partner's fantasizing about another person, that's also disloyal behavior. That's also kind of emotionally cheating. That's not okay. That's not okay in our relationship. We have a boundary around that. We're not okay. Neither of us are okay with that. That would be gross and disgusting. Yeah, okay, 98%, that's not great odds. But did you know that that's the same ratio of people that are vegan versus non-vegan? Only 2% of the population, human population globally, are vegan, okay? That doesn't mean that you can't be vegan, and it doesn't mean that you can't find someone who's vegan. The 2% of the world's population is a massive amount of people, you only have one soulmate. And if anything, the more discerning you become and the less you tolerate bullshit and the less you're willing to compromise on your standards, the faster you will find your needle in the haystack. Okay, so stay tuned. I'm gonna call Dom and get him to weigh in because he's got some stuff that he wants to share with you. Hey baby. Hey, thanks so much for joining us. So grateful to have you on here, especially like Dom is like really busy with everything that he has going on, so it's a privilege to have him on the podcast every time you come on. And yeah, you had quite a lot to say about this whole Aubrey Marcus situation, particularly with the Gematria Decode. So what?
Yeah, I'd never heard of these people before, but you made me look into it, and
I'm glad. I'm glad you don't know who these people are. I said I'm glad that you don't know who these people are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think he's like friends with or business partner with Joe Rogan, or was with Joe Rogan.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Why'd you say that?
As they're both Freemasons, and they both have a Freemason brick wall as their background, and they're just sexual deviants, and yeah.
Okay, so they're
just spreading misinformation. That's just what they do.
Yeah.
And they have apparently large platforms to do it because they're just propped into positions of influence, and that's how these Zionists operate.
Yeah. Yeah, so like go into the decode then, the Gematria Decode. Well, first, okay, for people who are new, because I know I got a couple of new people here who didn't watch the Sexual Misery podcast in which you did the Gematria Decode on that as well. Just summarize for people what is Gematria and how does it work, and just very quickly and succinctly.
Yeah, so Gematria stems from Kabbalah, where they say God created the world by language, and it's combining the number with the letter with the word. And so it's expressed in the foundational text of the Kabbalah, where the Sefer Yetzirah, or in English translates to the Book of Formations. So he created his universe by three forms of expression: numbers, letters, and words, just like the Holy Bible's beginning in Genesis, where God speaks the word into existence over the course of 6 days and resting on the seventh, making it holy. So in Kabbalah, the practice is the Gematria is the practice of coding numbers into words, meaning gematria in geometry in language. And it's very popular in Hebrew and ancient Greek studies, where it's known as isopsephy. And so, gematria is about pairing words together that have matching numerical values and logical relationships. And they say the Book of Kabbalah is, or not the book, but Kabbalah is to better understand the nature of God, or so they say. And so that's how these people code all their crimes and everything. They script all the news, they script all these world events and orchestrate things to manipulate the collective consciousness and people's emotions to manipulate our reality and further their agendas. And so some of the things that started to stand out was, one, his little logo on the wall, the AM. It's an A over an M, and it literally makes a triangle, a pyramid. Because, we all know they love their symbolism with this stuff and hiding it right in our faces. So here we go, back to my notes.
And it's got the eye as well in the middle, right? We'll drop a picture of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but and these Satanists and Kabbalists, they use sex magic, as we know, to also perform rituals and help manipulate the reality and stuff too of collective humanity consciousness. And these people are Zionists, created porn, they control the porn industry, so they're just encouraging and promoting sexual degeneracy, which is all this guy is about, Aubrey Marcus. And his name, for example, Aubrey Marcus equals 74 in the reverse reduction of Gematria. Another thing, a little bit more about Gematria. So, for example, there's numerous ciphers, but they use the four main ones, and one of them is where A is 1 all the way to Z is 26. There's 26 letters in the alphabet, so they'll have a numerical value. And there's also like a reverse ordinal where Z is 1, back to A is 26, and so forth. And so anyways, Aubrey Marcus, his name equals 74. Also, the word Jewish equals 74, occult equals 74, Jesus, Messiah. He's known for having a Messiah complex. He claims he's channeling this godly information about radical monogamy from God, right, or source, which couldn't be further from the truth. And
yeah, sorry to interrupt. In one of the podcasts, I think on Diary of a CEO, he was wearing a Star of David, and his teacher is a rabbi who teaches Kabbalah, which I explained already in the podcast.
Mm-hmm. And so another thing with the 74 ritual that they're doing here with him and his name, and it's interesting, like the twin trade towers were on the 74th meridian, and they fell 33 years after their creation. 33 is the highest level of Freemasonry, and that's what he is a Freemason. So this is his podcast, and what he's doing here with this whole radical monogamy crap is just promoting like the fall of Hieros Gamos, right? Divine union. Like this couldn't be further from Hieros Gamos and monogamy and true divine union. And so that's what Satanists do. They invert everything God, holy and that God is about and designed for us, and just turn it upside down, like the cross, and flip the crosses up, an upside down star is a pentagram, and so, yeah, so Mark Gaffney equals 72 in Gematria. Pornography also equals 72 in Gematria. Jesuit order equals 72 in Gematria. Oh yeah, Vylana's name equals 33 also, and she's... like I said, 33 is the highest degree of Freemasonry. Alana Beale, who they also bring into this little disgusting orgy group they got going on. Her name equals 54, just like Mark Gaffney's name also equals 54 in a different cipher. And they're normalizing this sexual degeneracy. Jesuit order also equals 54. Vylana is also from Hawaii. Allegedly, Hawaii equals 33. There's a lot of funny synchronicities with where they met, allegedly, right? So their first date that they all go on as a triad, whatever this little orgy group is, El Palacio de los Huegos, or whatever. And I don't know how to pronounce it, but it equals 201. And that's the little steakhouse that they all first met up with in Miami, which also... does some funny gematria with Miami too, and their names. But anyways, 201, for those who don't know, Jewish mysticism equals 201. The Jesuit order equals 201. The Holy Bible equals 201. The State of Israel equals 201. Order of Illuminati equals 201. When we know about Event 201 with the pandemic simulation, as if a coronavirus happened to hypothetically break out. How it was a simulation that all the world governments put together, the World Economic Forum, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and they all talked about how they would lock the world down systematically, what the news articles would say, and so forth. Pedophilia equals 201. It's just the 201s just go on. That's like one of the biggest rituals that they love to use.
So can I ask for the viewers, I know you and I have discussed this, but is it that they deliberately name themselves, give themselves these names that have these numbers, or is it like a synchronistic is it like a synchronicity that shows a divine intelligence orchestrating this, or like a non-divine, like a demonic intelligence that's orchestrating this?
It is argued by some that could be the case, but with these Freemasons, I think they either come up with these names and put these people into positions of power, or they choose people based on their names potentially. But I think it's the opposite. I think they actually intentionally name these people certain things and groom them into their roles. And
well, he did say that his parents were a big deal, and so he had this pressure put on him that he also had to be a big deal. So it's possible that his parents were involved in the club.
Yeah, I don't think there's any coincidences, honestly. I think it's just a way to kind of discredit and hurt the truth of what Gematria is bringing forth here.
Have you ever decoded your name?
Yeah, I haven't noticed anything significant.
Did you decode my name?
Yeah, same thing. I didn't really notice anything.
Right. So it must be. It's probably scripted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they met Vylana at Burning Man. Burning Man equals 58.
Right.
And also some other things that go at Burning Man are Solomon's Temple,
Oh,
Secret Society.
shit. Oh,
They
shit.
all these words equal 58. Freemasonry, Holy Bible, Zodiac, Gregorian, Biblical, Society, Secret Society, Rosicrucian, Solomon's Temple, Burning Man. David Icke's in there too, like all these people.
Wow.
Jerusalem, Solomon's Temple, the Third Temple. Oh, back to Lily Phillips from the Bonnie Blue story. That sexual generosity story is also tied in here too.
It's interesting her name's Lily as well, because that's the nickname for Lilith.
There you go. Yeah, exactly right. And they also refer to what they're doing here as the God bomb, right? Which God bomb equals 58.
No
which is
way.
Aubrey refers to it as the lineage of medicine practice that they are developing, which is really just how to convince everyone to just be a sexual degenerate like that.
I think it's 5-MAO. It's some kind of it's like 2CB. I'm not sure exactly, but some kind of psychedelic that's like not a plant medicine. It's like some kind of psychedelic drug.
Oh yeah, AM. So the AM logo on the wall, right? A and M equals 40 in a certain cipher, standing for Aubrey Marcus. And divorce is also 40. LGBTQIA is 40. Cheating is 40. Infidel is 40. And speaking of Joe Rogan is 40.
Right. Yeah. So infidel meaning unfaithful to your partner, unfaithful to God.
One who has no religious beliefs, which also makes me want to go back to what the doctor says, like right off the doctor. Who is this guy? Anyway, he says right in the beginning, he goes, "There's always a series of deceptions at play in classical monogamous relationship. 60 to 70% sexuality that violates the monogamous container in some form of cheating, and we're all living in shame." And he said, not that particular part, but he also says, reality is a story, not a fact, which is basically just another New Age satanic way of saying there is no God.
Yeah.
There is no objective truth. There are no divine laws. You can do whatever you want because you are God.
Yeah.
Which is what they believe in Kabbalah.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't hear me say that on the podcast earlier, but that's what, I said that earlier. I love that we're just syncing up on this. Guys, this is what I'm saying. Like, me and Tom haven't really discussed this at length that much. I sent him the podcast to listen to, and we shared a couple of conversations about this. But we literally have, even though I'm not an expert on gematria and he's not an expert on quantum field work, but we're literally coming to the same realizations, studying the same things, and like having the same mission template. So yeah, like if you're needing to like leak out, like open up your container to bring in more passion, that's probably not your person.
Yeah, I don't even claim to be an expert on gematria. I've researched it quite a bit, but like it's such a vast occult teaching. And so here's another fun little decode too. So also these words here all equal 113: Burning Man, perverted, infidelity, divorce, fake reality. This is also interesting. So Alana Beale, her name equals 27. There's a dating app that he mentions in this podcast too called Raya for celebrities and high profile people to find each other easier on. Raya equals 27. And it's so ridiculous in the story too. He's like, I was divinely called to, source told me to get on this dating app to find someone very important to me. And I opened it and I looked, and the first person that came up, I was like, nope, had to swipe. And then he claims he found Alana. Such a joke there. Oh, and so Miami, where they met Alana, also equals 27. He's also the CEO of On It, which equals 27. Like, this is, you can't write this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, they scripted this shit. But it could not be a coincidence that all this is tied together.
Wow. Wow, that's really eye-opening, huh? I wouldn't have thought it. But I guess, yeah, if he's friends with Joe Rogan, and he was obviously talking about when I was, starting out, and all these athletes I was working with were all unfaithful, and I didn't want to be like that. I wanted to be honest. It's just like, I mean, he's obviously moving in that world. So, I'm not saying that everybody who moves in that world is part of the club, but it's not surprising for somebody to be in the club if they are moving in that world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so disturbing.
Yeah, this whole like, how long was that podcast? 3 hours. I only made it like 45 minutes in, and I found all this. Like,
yeah. Yeah, well, our podcast is going to be about 3 hours because I did talk for a long time.
There's a lot to cover, and you don't realize they're so subtle. Like, but this is high level Freemasonry. Like, words are spells. This is spell casting. This is what they're doing. This is a ritual. This is manipulating the masses into, being okay and normalizing the sexual degeneracy. And like he even said, both of the women have had sexual partners while in their radical monogamous construct. Like, how is this monogamous? Like, it's not even just you three. Like, you're all screwing other people the whole time.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
It's such a joke. It's just sexual degeneracy. They're just disgusting people. It's just perversion and lust and giving into, like, yeah.
So you don't think that kind of
config...
Do you know? Sorry, go on.
It's just porn culture, which they created, the Zionists.
Yeah. So you don't think that there's any way that kind of configuration could be sacred? Like, let's say you and I both bring in one other person. Could that configuration be sacred? What's your view?
I guess it's sacred in the sense of, like, if you were in some satanic religion.
Right.
Sacred, I guess. But as far as holiness and godliness, there's nothing sacred about this. Like, how is giving yourself to anyone practically and watching all your partners do the same thing, how is that sacred? What's sacred about it?
Yeah. One of the things that Dom said to me as well, when I first told him about this, was he was just like, no masculine man would ever be okay with this kind of thing. So speak to that.
Yeah, so he uses fun words in this podcast like compersion, which is a nicely packaged way of saying he's a cuck. Like, that's what it is. This is stupid.
So you don't think it's masculine to be a cuck?
No. There's nothing masculine about watching another dude rail your chick.
Yeah. Why do you think people are into that? I talked about the cook implant as well. I shared about that, a little bit about that.
They're grooming us all with social media, entertainment, and the like I said, they're behind the porn industry. Like, they script and narrate all that stuff, and that's why it's so heavily promoted in this.
So what does true masculinity look like?
A divine union, being faithful to your partner, having moral integrity, and raising children with them, like being a father figure, protecting them. Like, how is this protecting anything? Like, you're just letting her run around and screw whoever she wants. Like,
but what would you say to people who are like, no, it's more masculine if you're a father figure to several women, if you have like several women and you have children with, because he wants to have children with both of them, right? Is that not more masculine? Obviously, I'm advocating for the devil. That's not what I really think, but
right.
Yeah, just speak to that argument.
Well, yeah, there's no way you could be a true good father figure to that many children. Like, are you kidding me? It's like, and most people can't even satisfy one woman. How are you actually going to satisfy multiple women? And if your woman needs another man to satisfy her, are you a true masculine alpha? Like,
yeah,
you can't satisfy her. Like, she's got to go elsewhere and look for it anywhere and everywhere practically.
Yeah, it's so disgusting, isn't it? It's so disgusting and disturbing. And they're obviously not okay with it. Like, you can see that the women are... I think Alana is maybe okay with it, but Vylana's definitely not. And the only reason why she's been able to kind of be okay with it is because he's been pimping her out to his friends. And so she's like, oh, okay, it is equal, but she's not really, like, she's obviously not in love with that other guy. It's just like, okay, if he wants to do that, I guess I better do it too. But I've got a sneeze coming. Oh, I lost it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you think that all men, because a lot of women have this belief through all of our sexual misery programming that all men desire to fuck multiple women, and all men, even if they can practice monogamy and can stay loyal, they're not loyal in their minds. They're still looking at other women and wishing that they could be with other women.
Yeah, it's definitely not the case that all men are like that, but it is a form of cheating to lust after another woman. And in my case, like, I certainly regret anyone else that I was ever with that wasn't you, which wasn't a lot of women, thankfully, but still, like, disgusts me. It's like, I was, because in my heart, ever since I was a little kid, I always felt like there was only one person out there for me. And then somewhere along the way, I just lost sight of that because I think I was groomed by the porn industry.
Yeah.
Like, I saw porn since I was a very young kid, and that like completely distorts your reality and your worldview, and like you look at sex differently. And then after I was like cheated on by like my first couple girlfriends, I'm like, wow, like maybe sex isn't something sacred, like maybe it is nothing to everybody else. I'm making it like more of a big deal in my mind than it actually is, but I couldn't be further from the truth. Like. Yeah, I was just steered the wrong way.
Yeah, and I think the same thing happens to women when they become promiscuous as often. But exposing young boys and girls to porn at a young age, I've spoken about this in previous podcasts, is child sexual abuse. It's grooming. The pornography industry literally targets children. And creates this sexual misery culture and this implanting. Obviously, we've removed various sexual misery templates from both of our fields, and I'm going to be bringing more group activations and clearings to help people clear the cook implants. And there's also various there was like that porn tape that was running, several sexual misery implants that I've cleared for not just Dom and myself, but also other clients. But yeah, 1 in 3 or 4 girls has been molested before the age of 18, 1 in 6 boys. So usually, and that's not even including the boys that have been exposed to pornography, because that's obviously, if we're talking about that, then it's probably maybe even like 3 and 4. It's probably a lot of people that have been sexualized and sexually abused as children. And so obviously that causes sexual reversals, and it can produce frigidness, but a lot of the time it produces hypersexuality in an attempt to normalize and minimize what happened to them, because it is so traumatic. Like, if you've been molested or you looked at other people, doing things that you should never see as a child. And some of the stuff, obviously, the things that you told me that you were exposed to and other children are being exposed to, it's extremely degenerate stuff. It's not pure divine lovemaking between a man and a woman. It's really disgusting, perverted stuff. So obviously people are going to become hypersexualized, because that's what happens when humans are sexually traumatized.
Yeah, and think about how many men are actually sexually raped and their genitals are sexually mutilated at birth.
Yeah,
via circumcision.
Yeah.
And in these Zionist cultures, these Jewish traditions, they suck the rabbi sucks the blood from the baby's dick after they cut it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, what is that?
I think it comes from like ancient Babylonian dark priesthood cults, because that's where a lot of these Abrahamic religions pull a lot of their spirituality from. Not saying that there aren't beautiful things also in all 3 Abrahamic religions. Obviously the Mosaic law comes from those religions, and there's a lot of good stuff in the Mosaic law, like don't kill, don't steal, don't covet someone's wife, don't commit adultery in your heart. Like, all of that stuff is great, but there's also massive distortions. And yeah, I think circumcision is definitely one of those. Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to say, baby?
Some other interesting stuff I saw. So Aubrey Marcus refers to, he got a third eye vision, that he claims was a mystical confirmation that he was supposed to sleep with multiple women. And he refers to it as the white star of light. And if you look up white star of light in Gematria, it equals 88, which is also like, Jewish is also 88, Epstein's 88, Trump's 88, Great Seal is 88, like the pyramid on the money.
Well, it is. 88 basically means divine abundance. Well, it means abundance. It means financial abundance.
Right. And in his case, sexual abundance.
Yeah.
And perversion.
It's the Ouroboros eating its own tail. So it's just two of them eating their own tail.
Yeah, also they said they were married by someone named Elvis.
Right.
Elvis's name equals 67. Blood sacrifice is 67. Human sacrifice is 67.
Oh, shit.
Which is like, also like what we're saying with this whole blood sacrifice, sex magic rituals that these Satanists and occultists do from the Talmud. What else do you call that? Like when you're chopping a baby's dick and eating their foreskin and drinking the blood, sucking their blood from their dick, like that's sex magic at its Satanism at its finest. Like, and what else? So radical monogamy equals 70. Star of David equals 70. Emery Andrew Tate equals 70. Like we know all these like sexual misery rituals are tied together. Like Giselle Pellicott equals 70.
Yeah.
From that story that you told me in the UK.
Yeah, we did that decode in the sexual misery podcast. So take a look at that if you missed that, guys.
Oh yeah, they said their first stop when they went to Egypt, of course, was the Temple of Isis, because ISIS is really like, the actual ISIS group is Israeli Secret Intelligence Service, right? Which is what these people are working for.
Right. Interesting.
Like I said, I'm only 45 minutes into it, and I already was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, they desecrated her name. I don't think that the original ISIS was that, but there were some distortions that happened in those temples.
Yeah, I think that's all I know so far.
Thanks so much, baby, for taking the time to do that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I really...
My pleasure.
Huh?
My pleasure. It's a good practice for me, too, to, decode this stuff and find all the links and how it's all tied together, all these stories and what they do.
So do you think that Aubrey, Marcus, and Vylana are actually, deeply, deeply in the club? Or do you think they're maybe
no
just...
doubt.
You don't... I kind of see them as more low level...
Well, yeah, as far as importance go, yeah, for sure. But they're still in the club, no doubt. Working their way up the ranks.
Yeah.
Of Freemasonry.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, people find it, I don't know, I think a lot of people will find, skeptical and don't realize how prolific this stuff is. I've had friends that have told me that they're going to join the club. And... These are friends of mine who are actually, I would say, good people. And I actually, this particular friend, I actually warned her against it. I was just like, it's not compatible with your... She's a Muslim. And I was just like, it's not compatible with your religious beliefs. And you're going to have to compromise a lot. And you're sworn to secrecy on pain of death. So just do a little bit of research into it before you do this. But she thought it would help with her career. I don't want to say what job she does because I don't want to identify her. But yeah.
Yeah, that's what they all say. It's just a network group. We all just care about each other. We help grow each other's businesses and thrive in our careers. And maybe at the entry level, that's what it's about. But as you work your way up, no, you're in this child sacrifices, blood rituals. You take a sworn blood oath that like you said, will be punishable by death if you speak against what club you're actually really in and part of.
Yeah, I mean, I've had other people that I've known in the industry that have openly told me that they joined the club, and then I saw them kind of blow up and do really well, and then fall because they weren't talented enough to maintain whatever attention they were now getting from the help that they got from the network. So obviously you make huge sacrifices, you don't get out, you might get some success, but like it's not like it's not always, you can't always maintain it, and then you might have to do more and more things to try and maintain it and keep on getting more attention on you. But if you're not talented enough, you're not going to be able to maintain the attention or hold people's attention or be able to sell enough of what you're trying to sell people. So they just get deeper and deeper and more involved and have to do more and more black magic. If you have to do so many spells and rituals to manifest things, you're not aligned with your highest timeline, you're not serving God, and you're not doing your divine mission. Like, just do what you were templated to do. Like, it might be slower, it might take longer, but it's going to be more sustainable, and eventually you will be successful, whatever that looks like for what it is that you're here to do.
And you can sleep at night.
Yeah. You're not being tortured by demons all day long, all night long.
Not only that, you're going to go to a way better place in the afterlife.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hanging out with you in the afterlife.
So beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, so should we wrap it up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. And if you want to book sessions with me, then that link is in the description box. Sign up for my mailing list now that I've been deplatformed. My mailing list is going to be where it's at. I can't guarantee that I'm going to be back on Facebook because I don't know if they're going to let me. So definitely I'm going to be focusing more on YouTube and my email list. Yeah, make sure you're also following me on TikTok if you do like a social media. That's where I haven't been deplatformed yet, and I do have a new Instagram now as well, so I will also be posting there. Yeah, so thanks for watching, and I will see you. We'll both see you hopefully in the next video. Bye.